माननीय सभासदों, माननीय सभापति जी,
नियम 377 के अधीन सूचना श्री गणेश सिंह जी। अच्छा, सबको बुलाना है।
लोकसभा के नियम 377 के तहत आपने मुझे बोलने का मौका दिया, इसके लिए आपका धन्यवाद। भारत सरकार द्वारा रासायनिक उर्वरक की जगह जैविक खाद का उपयोग देश के किसान करें, इस दिशा में कई कारगर उपाय हमारी सरकार ने उठाए हैं। इस बजट में प्राकृतिक खेती करने वाले किसानों को प्रोत्साहन राशि देने का भी प्रावधान किया गया है। भारत सरकार गंगा नदी के 10 किलोमीटर इस पार और दोनों तरफ प्राकृतिक खेती करने के लिए एक पायलट प्रोजेक्ट तय किया है। मैं सरकार से मांग करता हूं कि मध्य प्रदेश में नर्मदा, तमस, सिमरावल, केन, बेतवा जैसी कई प्रचुर मात्रा में जल प्रवाह करने वाली नदियां हैं, उन्हें भी प्राकृतिक खेती के लिए पायलट प्रोजेक्ट में शामिल किया जाए। विशेष रूप से मैं अपने क्षेत्र सतना के अंतर्गत तमस नदी, सिमरावल नदी और सतना नदी को भी इस योजना में शामिल करने की मांग करता हूं। धन्यवाद।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। श्रीमती अपराजिता सारंगी जी नहीं। श्री निशिकांत, डॉक्टर निशिकांत दुबे जी।
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय। देवघर एक महत्वपूर्ण और ऐतिहासिक पर्यटन का स्थल है, जिसको कि भारत सरकार के पर्यटन मंत्रालय ने महत्वपूर्ण शहर का दर्जा दिया है। और देवघर अपने आप में एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण और यूनिक जगह है सर, कि 51 शक्तिपीठ में से एक शक्तिपीठ है और 12 ज्योतिर्लिंग में से एक ज्योतिर्लिंग है। और प्रत्येक साल वहां भारत में सबसे ज्यादा पर्यटक 5 करोड़ लोग प्रत्येक साल देवघर में पूजा करने के लिए या पर्यटन की दृष्टि से वहां जाते हैं। मैं आपके माध्यम से रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहता हूं सर कि वहां चूंकि डीआरडीओ का एक बहुत बड़ा फैसिलिटी है और उस कारण से वहां 400 एकड़ जमीन भी हम लोगों ने दे रखा है, वहां की सरकार ने दे रखा है। इसीलिए वहां एक आयुध का कारखाना, डीआरडीओ का जो है एक बड़ा प्रोजेक्ट वहां बनना चाहिए। दूसरा, एक लेबोरेटरी होना चाहिए, क्योंकि मैक्सिमम जो डीआरडीओ के लेबोरेटरी हैं वो हैदराबाद में है, तो डीआरडीओ की लेबोरेटरी होनी चाहिए। तीसरा, ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री जो पीपीपी मोड में या प्राइवेट मोड में चल रहा है, क्योंकि वो डीआरडीओ की जो फैसिलिटी है अपने आप में देश के लिए बहुत सामरिक महत्व का है, तो इसीलिए एक ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री। सैनिक स्कूल माननीय पर्रिकर साहब जब थे तो वो सैंक्शन हुआ है गोड्डा में, उसको चालू होना चाहिए। और जो डिफेंस का रिक्रूटमेंट सेंटर है वो देवघर में होना चाहिए। आपको पता है सर कि ये जो एरिया है देवघर, ये नक्सलिज्म से और टेररिज्म से दोनों से ग्रसित है, और उसका कारण यह है कि वहाँ पलायन और विस्थापन दो महत्वपूर्ण है, जो कि आदिवासियों में पलायन और विस्थापन बढ़ रहा है। और इस कारण से जो समाज का वो तबका जो छूटा हुआ है, जहां विकास होना चाहिए, उसके लिए ये सारी व्यवस्था यदि हो जाएगी, रोजगार की व्यवस्था हो जाएगी, तो हम इस पर मुक्ति पा पाएंगे। इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ जय हिंद, जय भारत।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। श्री संजय काका पाटिल जी नहीं। श्री सुनील कुमार सिंह, डॉक्टर संजय राधाकृष्ण विखे पाटिल जी, श्री निहाल चंद चौहान जी।
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय। सभापति जी, मैं आपके माध्यम से केंद्र सरकार का ध्यान पंजाब प्रदेश की उन औद्योगिक इकाई जिसका पानी राजस्थान को आ रहा है, इंदिरा गांधी नहर में आ रहा है और अन्य जल स्रोत के कारण प्रदूषित हो रहा है। पानी के बढ़ते हुए प्रदूषण के कारण इंदिरा गांधी नहर का पानी पीने योग्य नहीं रहा है, न सिंचाई योग्य रहा है। राजस्थान प्रदेश में पानी एक बड़ी समस्या है और बहुत ही सीमित मात्रा में इसकी उपलब्धता है। इंदिरा गांधी नहर जिसका पानी पंजाब, हरियाणा, राजस्थान प्रदेश को आवंटित होता है, प्रदूषण बहुत खतरनाक स्तर पर पहुंच चुका है और पंजाब राज्य की औद्योगिक इकाइयों द्वारा केमिकल युक्त गंदा पानी इंदिरा गांधी नहर में डाला जा रहा है। महोदय, राजस्थान के रेगिस्तानी इलाकों के लिए जीवनदायिनी बन चुकी इंदिरा गांधी नहर अब बीमारियों का कारण बन चुकी है। पंजाब से आ रहे बेहद प्रदूषित पानी इस्तेमाल करने के लिए लोग बड़ी संख्या में बीमार हो रहे हैं पीलिया और कैंसर जैसी भयानक बीमारी हो रही है। अभी केंद्र सरकार और माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी को धन्यवाद करना चाहूँगा कि उन्होंने केंद्र सरकार ने अभी 774 करोड़ रुपए पंजाब को 663.20 MLD क्षमता के 20 सीवरेज को संशोधन यंत्रों को स्थापित करने के लिए केंद्र सरकार ने दिए, STP लगाने के लिए केंद्र सरकार ने दिए हैं, जिससे व्यास और सतलुज नदियों का पानी प्रदूषण मुक्त किया जा सके। इसके बावजूद भी पंजाब सरकार अभी तक कोई कार्रवाई नहीं कर रही है और अभी तक कोई भी कार्रवाई STP लगाने के लिए पंजाब सरकार ने आदेश नहीं किया है। मेरा आपके माध्यम से केंद्र सरकार से आग्रह है कि मेरे संसदीय क्षेत्र सहित श्री गंगानगर सहित राजस्थान के 13 जिला है, इसमें पानी पीते हैं और दूषित पानी के कारण काफी सारे लोग बीमार हो रहे हैं। तो मेरा आपसे एक तो आग्रह है और मैं आपसे ये भी आग्रह करूंगा कि अभी केंद्र सरकार द्वारा भाखड़ा व्यास मैनेजमेंट बोर्ड नामित सदस्यों को लेकर एक नोटिफिकेशन जारी किया है, जिसके तहत अब BBMP में हरियाणा और पंजाब का जो एकाधिकार था उसको समाप्त कर दिया गया है। मेरा आपके माध्यम से केंद्र सरकार से आग्रह है कि राजस्थान का सदस्य नॉमिनेट करें ताकि राजस्थान प्रदेश को भी पूरा पानी पंजाब से मिल सके।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। श्रीमती दिया कुमारी जी।
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय। मैं सदन के माध्यम से सरकार का ध्यान मेरे संसदीय क्षेत्र के अंतर्गत राजसमंद, मेड़ता, भीम और जेतारन में केंद्रीय विद्यालय खोलने की आवश्यकता की ओर आकर्षित करना चाहूंगी। मेरे संसदीय क्षेत्र राजसमंद में बड़ी संख्या में सैनिक परिवार और केंद्रीय कर्मचारी निवास करते हैं और उच्च गुणवत्तापूर्ण शिक्षा प्राप्ति के लिए यहां केंद्रीय विद्यालय खोले जाने की मांग लगातार की जाती रही है। मैंने इस संबंध में माननीय शिक्षा मंत्री को पत्र लिख के पूर्व में अनुरोध भी किया है। राजसमंद, मेड़ता और भीम में केंद्रीय विद्यालय खोलने की सभी औपचारिकताएं पूर्ण कर ली गई हैं और केंद्रीय विद्यालय संगठन के जयपुर क्षेत्रीय कार्यालय से प्रस्ताव संगठन के मुख्यालय में भिजवा दिया गया है, जबकि जेतारन की प्रक्रिया अभी बाकी है। स्कूल शिक्षा में नए कीर्तिमान स्थापित करने में केंद्रीय विद्यालय की भूमिका बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण रही है। गुणवत्तापूर्ण शिक्षा से विद्यार्थियों का भविष्य संवार सकता है। इसके लिए आवश्यकता के अनुसार क्षेत्रों में केंद्रीय विद्यालयों की स्थापना होनी चाहिए। पूरा राजसमंद लोकसभा क्षेत्र लाभान्वित हो, इसके लिए केंद्रीय विद्यालय खोलने की अनुमति मिलना आवश्यक है। अतः मेरी आपके माध्यम से सरकार से मांग है कि जिला मुख्यालय राजसमंद, मेड़ता, भीम और जेतारन में केंद्रीय विद्यालय खोले जाएं। धन्यवाद।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। श्री अर्जुन सिंह जी।
धन्यवाद। I would like to draw the kind attention of the Honorable Textile Minister about the jute industry in Bengal, which is going down, and the employees of the industry who have lost their job in large numbers. The bureaucracy is fully responsible for the plight of the jute farmers and jute mill because of a big difference in the jute price between the government price and the market rate. The mediator in the market gets full benefit and makes huge amount which belongs to the farmer and jute mills. For the first time in the history, the jute commissioner is fixing the rate of jute in September 2021 at the rupees 6,500 per quintal, while the market price stood very high on around of rupees 6,700 to rupees 9,000 per quintal as per Jute Baler Association. If the farmer will not get the fair price for the crop, they will be encouraged to divert the cultivation of the jute to other crops. I request the Honorable Textile Minister to please look into the matter and save the jute mills and the workers who suffer by the such a fixation of the rate. I request you to please provide answer from government on the issue of public importance. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Shri Chunnilal Sahu ji.
सभापति महोदय, आपके माध्यम से अवगत कराना चाहूँगा कि छत्तीसगढ़ के किसानों की धान ग्रामीण सहकारी सभा समिति के द्वारा खरीदी जाती है, जहां राज्य सरकार के द्वारा निर्धारित एजेंसी द्वारा 72 घंटों में धान को खरीदी केंद्र से उठाकर भंडारण केंद्रों में ले जाने का प्रावधान है। लेकिन दिसंबर माह में खरीदी गई धान को अब मार्च में उठाया जा रहा है। ऐसे में धान की सूक्ति आना स्वाभाविक है और सरकार द्वारा भी 30% की छूट दी गई है। लेकिन वर्तमान में 0% सूक्ति दर्शाव कह करके प्रशासनिक अधिकारी द्वारा धान खरीदी केंद्र प्रभारी एवं सहकारी समिति के प्रबंधक समिति के विरुद्ध कार्रवाई कर यहाँ तक के उनके मोटरसाइकिल और घर की संपत्ति को भी ब्यौरा मांगा जा रहा है, जब्ती बनाया जा रहा है। इस प्रकार राज्य प्रशासन के अधिकारी खरीदी केंद्रों के प्रभारियों समितियों के ऊपर कार्रवाई कर रहे हैं। अतः सदन के माध्यम से सरकार से मेरी गुजारिश है कि उक्त संबंध में प्रशासनिक अधिकारी द्वारा की गई लापरवाही हेतु केंद्रीय जल भेज करके ग्रामीण सहकारी समिति को होने वाली आर्थिक क्षति से बचाया जाए। धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। श्रीमती रीति पाठक जी।
बहुत धन्यवाद करती हूँ सभापति महोदय। मेरे क्षेत्र की बहुत विशेष और महत्वपूर्ण समस्या है सभापति महोदय। लगातार मैं सदन में इस समस्या को रखती आई हूँ। आज मैं आपके माध्यम से 377 के अधीन इस समस्या को रेल मंत्री जी तक पहुँचाने की कोशिश कर रही हूँ। माननीय, आज मैं रेल मंत्री जी से आग्रह करना चाहती हूँ कि मेरे रेल रहीन संसदीय क्षेत्र सीधी के लिए ललितपुर सिंगरौली रेल परियोजना बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है और ये हमारे क्षेत्र के रेल के सपनों को साकार करने वाली परियोजना है सभापति महोदय। 2015 में माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के द्वारा विशेष रुचि लेते हुए इस परियोजना के कार्यों के लिए समय सीमा निर्धारित की गई थी, जिसके कारण कार्यों में तीव्रता आई और उसी का परिणाम है कि बघवार से छुइया घाटी में मध्य प्रदेश का सबसे बड़ा रेलवे का टनल बनकर तैयार है। महोदय, अभी कुछ दिन पहले हमारे माननीय रेल मंत्री जी ने उक्त टनल की फोटो भी पोस्ट की थी और ट्वीट भी किया था, परंतु मैं निवेदन करना चाहती हूँ और उन्हें अवगत कराना भी चाहती हूँ कि उक्त परियोजना के भाग रीवा से सिंगरौली में तीव्रता लाने की विशेष आवश्यकता है। विगत महीनों में परियोजना के कार्यों में की गति में बेहद कमी आई है। महोदय, मेरा आपके माध्यम से आग्रह है कि ललितपुर सिंगरौली रेल परियोजना के भाग रीवा से सिंगरौली के कार्यों में तीव्रता लाने हेतु संबंधित को निर्देशित किया जाए, जिसके फलस्वरूप माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के द्वारा निर्धारित समय सीमा में परियोजना का कार्य पूर्ण हो सके।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। श्री सुनील कुमार सिंह जी।
आदरणीय सभापति जी, मैं आपका अत्यंत आभारी हूं कि आपने नियम 377 के अधीन मुझे एक महत्वपूर्ण विषय रखने का अवसर दिया है। केंद्र सरकार द्वारा प्रायोजित अम्ब्रेला ICDS के अंतर्गत झारखंड राज्य में वर्ष 2016 में राज्य के 6 जिलों धनबाद, गिरिडीह, दुमका, गोड्डा, कोडरमा और चतरा में 10,388 पोषण सखी नियुक्त की गई थी। राज्य में बच्चों को कुपोषण से मुक्त करने के लिए लगन और ईमानदारी के साथ विगत 6 साल से ये कार्य कर रही थी, जिसके परिणाम स्वरूप कुपोषण के मामले में कमी आई है। कोरोना काल में भी पोषण सखियों द्वारा सराहनीय काम किया गया। इन पोषण सखियों को वेतन के रूप में मात्र 3,000 रुपया महीना के दर से मानदेय दिया जाता है और यह मानदेय भी पिछले कई महीनों से लंबित है। झारखंड की वर्तमान सरकार ने 25 मार्च 2022 को एक आदेश जारी करते हुए इन 6 जिलों की सभी 10,388 पोषण सखियों की सेवा 1 अप्रैल 2022 से समाप्त कर दी है। झारखंड सरकार ने पोषण सखियों को बेरोजगार कर दिया है। मात्र 100 रुपये प्रतिदिन मानदेय पर काम करने वाली पोषण सखियां 6 साल तक काम करने के बाद अब कहां जाएंगी? इनके बच्चों की पढ़ाई और महत्वपूर्ण 6 साल राज्य की सेवा में लगा दिए। राज्य को कुपोषण और कोरोना से बचाने में अपना भरपूर सहयोग करने के बाद अब ये पोषण सखियां बेरोजगार हैं। आदरणीय सभापति जी, मेरा आपके माध्यम से केंद्र सरकार और राज्य सरकार से मांग है कि झारखंड के 6 जिलों धनबाद, गिरिडीह, दुमका, कोडरमा और चतरा में 10,388 पोषण सखियों की सेवाएं अस्थायी रूप से जारी रखने का निर्देश दें और पोषण सखियों के लंबित मानदेय का भुगतान तत्काल किया जाए। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। श्री परबत भाई सवा भाई पटेल जी।
आदरणीय अध्यक्ष महोदय, मैं आपका आभार व्यक्त करता हूं कि आपने मुझे बोलने का मौका दिया। आदरणीय अध्यक्ष महोदय, मेरे संसदीय क्षेत्र बनासकांठा जिले के अंतर्गत जिले के सभी तहसील धानेरा, दांतीवाड़ा, लाखनी, डीसा, थराद, अमीरगढ़, दांता, पालमपुर, कांकरेज, बड़गाम और दियोदर तहसीलों में भूगर्भ जल स्तर काफी नीचे जा रहा है और यह भूजल स्तर निरंतर नीचे जाते ही जा रहा है। ये सारे जिले की पोजीशन है। यदि हम भूजल के वर्तमान स्तर की बात करें तो यहाँ 1000 फुट पर भी पानी नहीं मिल पा रहा है। ये आप में भी एक जटिल एवं विकराल समस्या का रूप ले रही है और किसान इस समस्या के कारण त्रस्त है। इसी वजह से किसानों को सिंचाई के लिए बहुत कठिनाइयों का सामना करना पड़ रहा है। जनप्रतिनिधि होने के साथ साथ मैं स्वयं भी एक किसान हूँ। इस नाते मैं किसानों की यह पीड़ा को भली भांति महसूस कर सकता हूँ। महोदय, मेरा यह क्षेत्र में किसान बहुत हैं और यहाँ के सभी कृषि आधारित और पशुपालन आधारित व्यवसाय कर रहे हैं, इसलिए इनके पास आय का दूसरा कोई स्रोत भी नहीं है। इसलिए जीविका का साधन जुटाने में अनेकों कठिनाइयों का सामना कर रहा है। भारत में भूजल भंडार के लगातार कम होने की चिंता को दूर करने के लिए हमारी सरकार द्वारा अटल भूजल योजना चलाई जा रही है। इस योजना का उद्देश्य सामुदायिक भागीदारियों के माध्यम से देश को प्राथमिकता वाले क्षेत्रों में भूजल प्रबंधन में सुधार करना है। इसी योजना के अंतर्गत राजस्थान साबरमती लिंक कैनाल को बनाए जाने का प्रावधान रखा गया है। आदरणीय अध्यक्ष महोदय, यदि इस कैनाल का कार्य जल्दी पूर्ण कर लिया जाए तो मेरे संसदीय क्षेत्र के उपरोक्त बताए गए तहसीलों में पानी की सिंचाई का एक नया स्रोत मिल जाएगा, जिसका लाभ यहाँ के किसानों को मिलेगा और एक जटिल समस्या का कुछ हद तक निवारण भी हो सकेगा। महोदय, इस कैनाल के साथ हमें और भी सिंचाई के साधन को तलाशना करनी ही होगी कि जिसकी वजह से इस समस्या को पूर्णतः निवारण हो जाए। अतः मेरा आपके माध्यम से माननीय मंत्री जी से निवेदन है कि मेरे संसदीय क्षेत्र में सिंचाई की व्यवस्था को सुनिश्चित करने के लिए जल्द से जल्द कार्रवाई की जाए। धन्यवाद। आभार।
धन्यवाद परबत भाई जी। श्री हसमुख भाई सोमा भाई पटेल जी।
माननीय अध्यक्ष महोदय जी, आपने मुझे मेरे क्षेत्र के महत्व के विषय पर नियम 377 के अधीन बोलने का मौका दिया, इसके लिए आपका धन्यवाद करता हूं। माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, मैं आपके माध्यम से माननीय मंत्री जी से यह बताना चाहता हूं कि पश्चिम रेलवे द्वारा मेरे निर्वाचन क्षेत्र में आया नरोडा रेलवे स्टेशन का रिनोवेशन किया जा रहा है। मैं इसके लिए माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी और रेल मंत्री श्री अश्विनी जी वैष्णव को धन्यवाद करता हूं। मगर माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, स्टेशन रिनोवेशन करने के कारण स्टेशन के दोनों बाजू रहने वाले लोगों को स्टेशन क्रॉस करने के लिए या तो रेल के पटरी क्रॉस करने के लिए कोई रास्ता नहीं है, जिस वजह से रेलवे स्टेशन के दोनों तरफ रहने वाले लोगों को एवं स्कूल और कॉलेज के छात्रों को आने जाने में काफ़ी दिक्कत का सामना करना पड़ रहा है। जिस वजह से स्कूल व कॉलेज में छात्रों एवं नौकरी पेशा करने वाले लोगों को स्टेशन ट्रैक के ऊपर से आना जाना पड़ता है, जिसकी वजह से कभी भी दुर्घटना होने की संभावना है। इस वजह से रेलवे द्वारा रेलवे ट्रैक की दोनों तरफ से रईसों को मजबूरीवश रेलवे ट्रैक क्रॉस न करने पड़े, इसके लिए पैदल पुल का निर्माण करना अति आवश्यक है। माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, मैं आपके माध्यम से माननीय रेल मंत्री जी को निवेदन करता हूं कि जल्द से जल्द नरोला रेलवे स्टेशन पर पैदल पुल बनाया जाए। धन्यवाद।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद एच.एस. पटेल जी। श्री जुगल किशोर शर्मा जी।
धन्यवाद उप सभापति जी। जम्मू कश्मीर राज्य के उन भारत पाक सीमावर्ती स्थानों पर जहां की सीमा पर तारबंदी हुई है, तारबंदी के कारण तारबंदी के उस ओर जो खेती की जमीन थी जिसका अभी अधिग्रहण कर लिया गया है, उन किसानों का जमीन ही एकमात्र सहारा थी। उन्हें इस जमीन का मुआवजा नहीं मिला है, जिससे वह अपने परिवार का भरण पोषण नहीं कर पा रहे हैं। कारण वह जमीन का मालिकाना हक उनके पास नहीं है। उन्हें ये जमीन अलाट की गई थी क्योंकि ये वह लोग हैं जो 1965-1971 में विस्थापित होकर आए थे और सरकार ने ये जमीन इन्हें खेती के लिए अलाट की थी। अब मजबूरियों की वजह से ये जमीन का अधिग्रहण कर लिया गया है, लेकिन उसका जो पैसा है वो उन लोगों को इसलिए नहीं मिल पा रहा है कि उनके पास उसका मालिकाना हक नहीं है, उनके पास सिर्फ अलाटमेंट है। तो मेरा आपके माध्यम से सरकार से इतना ही कहना है कि जिन लोगों के पास वो जमीन है, जिनको वो अलाट हुई है, उनको उस जमीन का पैसा मिलना चाहिए, मुआवजा मिलना चाहिए, ताकि वो अपने परिवार का पालन पोषण कर सके।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। श्री राहुल कसवान जी। श्रीमती मंगल सुरेश अंगड़ी जी। श्री आर के सिंह पटेल जी।
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय। महोदय, देश में प्रतिदिन बड़े पैमाने पर सड़क दुर्घटनाएं हो रही हैं, जिसमें लाइसेंसधारी ड्राइवर प्रतिदिन मौत के घाट उतरते हैं। ड्राइवरों के ड्राइविंग लाइसेंस जारी करते समय दुर्घटना बीमा की व्यवस्था नहीं है। महोदय, यदि कोई लाइसेंसधारी ड्राइवर की मृत्यु हो जाती है तो दुर्घटना के पश्चात उसके परिवार के आश्रित को कोई आर्थिक सहायता नहीं दी जाती है। जैसे दुर्घटना बीमा के अंतर्गत श्रमिकों का दुर्घटना है, कृषक दुर्घटना बीमा है, और श्रम कार्ड धारकों के जो जिनको रजिस्टर्ड हो जाते हैं श्रम कार्ड धारक, उनका बीमा है। इसी तरह से उनको सहायता दी जाती है। किंतु यदि कोई ड्राइविंग लाइसेंसधारी ड्राइवर की मृत्यु हो जाती है तो उसके परिवार को दर दर की ठोकरें खाना पड़ता है। जैसे श्रमिक रजिस्टर्ड होने के बाद दुर्घटना बीमा का प्राविधान किया गया है, उसी प्रकार से लाइसेंसधारी ड्राइवर जब लाइसेंस जारी करते हैं तो उसका उसी समय उसकी बीमा की किस्त जमा करा करके और उसका बीमा किया जाना आवश्यक है। अतः आपके माध्यम से मैं सड़क परिवहन मंत्री जी से, सरकार से मांग करता हूं कि देश के समस्त ड्राइवरों का, चाहे वो मोटरसाइकिल हो, चाहे कार हो, चाहे ट्रक हो, जब भी वो लाइसेंस जारी करावें तो उसी के साथ उनकी बीमा की किस्त भी जमा करा करके और उनका दुर्घटना बीमा योजना लागू कराने की कृपा करें। धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद जी। श्री वीके श्रीकंदन जी।
Thank you, sir. It has been long pending demand of the people, mostly tribals living in Attapadi, to declare the state road from Mannarkad to Coimbatore via Attapadi and Chinnatadagam as sub-highway to National Highway number 966. Declaring this state road as sub-highway to National Highway to number 966 will really help the tribal people. Due to the present condition of road, the people are not able to save the lives of their near and dear, as journey to the nearest hospital at Perindalmanna or Coimbatore takes a lot of time, and in between patients succumb to illness. Moreover, Attapadi is an agriculture area cultivating many types of spices and other agriculture produce, and these tribal farmers are finding it very difficult to transport their produce to the nearby market at Coimbatore, and as such are unable to get a decent price of their produce. Declaring this state road as a sub-highway and the expected development on this account will reduce travel distance from Kozhikode to Coimbatore and can save fuel as well as pave the way of overall development of this tribal inhabited area. Therefore, it is urged that the said state road may please be declared as sub-highway to National Highway number 966 urgently. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Shri Advocate Dean Kuriakos ji.
Sir, prices of essential medicines including painkillers, antibiotics, anti-infectives are set to go up from April, with the government allowing an increase of over 10% for scheduled drugs. India's Drug Pricing Authority on Friday allowed a price hike of 10.7% for scheduled drugs which are under price control. This is the highest price hike allowed. Over 800 drugs under the National List for Essential Medicines, that is NLEM, will see a price rise from April. The NLEM list includes drugs like paracetamol, antibiotics like azithromycin used to treat bacterial infections, anti-anemia, vitamins and minerals. Some drugs used for treating moderately to severely ill COVID-19 patients and steroids are also included in the list. These medicines have a profound impact on the lives of people. The government's reasoning around inflation indexing of price does not hold water in a country like ours, where crores of people struggle to buy food, let alone life-saving medicines. I urge upon the government to reverse this decision and ensure that life-saving drugs stay affordable to the people of India. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Shri Adhiranjan Chaudhary ji.
Sir, matter under Rule 377. So the district Murshidabad in West Bengal is recognized as one of the aspirational districts in India, which maintains a long border with the neighboring country Bangladesh. Thousands of inhabitants of the district have their close relatives to the other side of river Padma, which is piercing mid between India and Bangladesh and demarcated the border. Hundreds, if not thousands of people of my district Murshidabad are eking out their livelihoods by the trade between the two countries. And also out of desperation, a large chunk of people indulge in illegal trading. For years together, local people of my districts are demanding to build a bridge across the river Padma in order to facilitate the trade and travel between the two close neighbors. A bridge with a span of only 4 kilometers is required to connect Kakmari in India and Charghat in Bangladesh, by which it can bring about a paradigm shift of trading between the two countries. Not only this formal trade could also contribute a substantial revenue to the exchequer, but also turn the illegal traders into legal traders. May I urge upon the government to have an exchange of views with Bangladesh so as to realize the long-cherished dream of the people of Murshidabad and the state as well. Seizing the opportunity of the conspicuous presence of External Affairs Minister in the House, I would like to flag his attention to take note of my concern.
Thank you very much. Dr. V. Kalanidhi ji. Shri R. Raghuram Krishna Raju ji.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman, sir. I draw the attention of the government to the issue of renaming the centrally sponsored schemes. Renaming the centrally sponsored schemes all the central schemes are being renamed on the personal names of the Chief Minister or his family members. For example, PM Kisan Samman Nidhi scheme has been termed as YSR Raitu Bharosa, PM Fasal Bima Yojana as YSR Free Crop Insurance, PM Awas Yojana as Jagananna Colonies, and YSR...
Kindly read your approved text which you have submitted here.
Yes, sir. And YSR Zero Interest Farm Loans, YSR Polambadi, YSR Agriculture Testing Labs. State is trying to take credit through nomenclature based on Chief Minister, his family members and even his lineage, while grants are made from the central government budget. Recently, Honorable Finance Minister on her visit to Andhra Pradesh observed and raised the issue before media and alerted the concerned officials to be more vigilant in implementing the schemes. When the matter was brought to the notice of Honorable Minister of Women and Child Development, she had promptly acted and communicated that the ban of co-branding any central sponsored schemes will be viewed seriously. I request the government to take swift corrective action in the matter before it goes out of control.
थैंक यू सर।
थैंक यू जी, थैंक यू। श्री कुरवा गोरंटल माधव जी, श्रीमती अपरारुता पोदार जी,
Thank you, sir, for allowing me to speak in Rule 377. Sir, West Bengal is a major potato growing state in India, and the farmers majorly grow Jyoti, Chandramukhi hybrid variety of Super 1, Super 6, Pokhuraj. Around 4 lakh area of land is under potato cultivation in Bengal, and is estimated about 10 lakh farmers are engaged in potato farming. Potato production in Bengal is higher by nearly 16% at 110 lakh ton, out of which 71 lakh ton of potato which are kept in cold storage every year. In potato farming, cool temperature is the uttermost importance for good produce. My constituency of Arambagh has a sustainable number of potato farmers who store their produce in cold storages, for which they have to fork out additional fees, often to private entities also. West Bengal has a vast growth potential in horticulture sector, and being one of the leading producer of potato, there is a requirement to shift from cold storage to integrated cold chain to release its full potential. Modernization cum retrofitting of existing traditional cold storage into multi-purpose cold storage will be the right step. I request the government to sanction an integrated cold storage for potatoes in my constituency of Arambagh. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Professor Saugata Rai.
Thank you for thanking us, sir. Thank you for thanking us. आप सब लोग को धन्यवाद दे रहे हैं. Sir, under Rule 377, I point out to the astronomical rise in prices of petroleum product, including petrol, diesel, CNG, LPG and others. Petrol in some parts of Bengal are selling at rupees 115 per litre. Diesel has crossed 100 rupees per litre. Yesterday the...
Kindly go
sir,
as
I'm
per
going
your...
by... one or two lines may be here or there, but...
अपने टैक्स पे रहिए.
Sir, you look at Rule 377 in the book. I'm going by the book.
No.
Sir, please allow me. It's a very important matter. Sir, you know that this is causing tremendous problems for the middle class, burning a hole in their pockets. Yesterday, the petroleum minister has said that in advanced countries, petrol price rise is 50%, ours is only 5%. This is a bad excuse for a government which is unable, which has failed to control the price of petroleum products. And followed by this price in petroleum products.
Kindly
sir,
go as per your script.
Here, you see, sir, go with me. The price of other essential commodities, sir, especially edible oils, is also rising rapidly. Today, the middle class is in a genuine distress. You see, it is written, is in a genuine distress. I'd urge the central government to do something to control the prices. After the victory in 4-state election, we are at random increasing the prices to the oil marketing companies. I condemn this and demand selling down of petroleum.
Shri Rahul Kaswan ji.
धन्यवाद अध्यक्ष महोदय. मेरे लोकसभा क्षेत्र चूरू में राष्ट्रीय राजमार्ग 52 को 2 लेन से 4 लेन किया जाने हेतु कार्य प्रारंभ किया जाना है. सड़क निर्माण से पूर्व सड़क की सुरक्षा की दृष्टि से विभिन्न विभाग के अधिकारियों के द्वारा सड़क का निरीक्षण किया गया था. इस निरीक्षण के दौरान पाया गया कि अनेक स्थानों पर दुर्घटनाओं में कमी लाए जाने हेतु VUP और CUP बनाए जाने की अत्यंत आवश्यकता है. गांव भांगीवाद, बागसरा, आथुना, खोटिया, ढानी, डीएसपुरा, रामसरा, ढाडर, लाखाऊ, लादड़िया, दूधवखारा, खेमाना, ढंडाल, गुलपुरा, शोपुरा व इंदासर के गांव हैं जहां इनकी अत्यंत ही मांग थी. काफ़ी स्थानों पर ग्रामीण जन के द्वारा इनके साथ साथ ROB बनाए जाने हेतु भी मांग की गई थी. इनका एक मुख्य कारण यह भी है कि इन गांवों में रिहायशी इलाका एक तरफ है, वह सभी सरकारी संस्थाएं व रेलवे स्टेशन गांव के दूसरी तरफ पड़ती हैं और आमजन को अनेकों बार सड़क के पार करना पड़ता है, जिसके लगातार दुर्घटना होने की आशंका बनी रहती है और काफ़ी स्थानों पर दुर्घटनाएं भी होती आई हैं, जिसकी वजह से आमजन का जीवन खतरे में है। तो अतः मेरा सदन के माध्यम से सरकार से अनुरोध है कि इन सभी स्थानों पर आरओबी, वीयूपी या सीयूपी आवश्यकता अनुसार बनाए जाए ताकि भविष्य में दुर्घटनाओं से होने से बचाया जा सके। धन्यवाद अध्यक्ष महोदय।
थैंक यू वेरी मच। श्री संजय हरिभाई जादव, श्री चंद्रशेखर साहू जी,
बस गया तो यार, it's not getting off, it's not getting off. बीच में आया बात से
उनका माइक ऑन किया जाए, माइक ऑन किया जाए।
Sir, the Ministry of Rural Development opened Awas Plus window to identify the eligible households left out from the permanent wait list of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana by 7th March 2019. Our state Odisha could register only 35,000 households within the stipulated period as the functionaries were preoccupied with the general election, that is 2019 work. After Cyclone Fani, Awas Plus window was opened for 14 affected districts during September-October 2019. Our state identified 7.87 lakhs households in these districts, making the total registration to 8.22 lakh. Ministry allotted target of 8.17 lakh under PMAY to Odisha from the Awas Plus list. During field verification of August-September 2021, 5.6 lakh households from the identified 8.22 lakhs were found eligible for sanction of PMAY houses. Honorable Prime Minister, during his visit after Fani, has committed to sanction 1.84 PMAY houses, special houses, to the cyclone Fani affected families. I request the Honorable Minister for Rural Development to allow opening of the Awas Plus window for 1 month to accomplish the migration of data of 5.09 lakh from rural house portal list to permanent waiting list through Awas Plus, and also include 1.84 lakh PMAY special houses to the cyclone Fani affected families as committed by our Honorable Prime Minister in May 2019.
Thank you very much. Dr. Gaddam Ranjit Reddy ji, Shri Hanuman Beniwal ji.
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय। नियम 377 के अधीन सूचना। सभापति महोदय, आपके माध्यम से भारत सरकार के जल शक्ति मंत्री जी का राजस्थान राज्य के लंबित जल विवादों के शीघ्र निस्तारण करने की मांग की तरफ ध्यान आकर्षित करते हुए बताना चाहता हूं कि 31/12/1981 को पंजाब, हरियाणा तथा राजस्थान राज्य के मुख्यमंत्रियों के मध्य हुए रावी व्यास नदियों के आधिक्य जल के बंटवारे के बारे में एक समझौता हुआ था और इसके अनुसार रावी व्यास नदियों के आधिक्य जल में से कुल उपलब्ध 17.17 MF में से राजस्थान राज्य का हिस्सा 8.60 MF निर्धारित किया गया था और उसके बाद पंजाब सरकार उप समझौते के विरुद्ध पंजाब समझौता समाप्ति अधिनियम 2014 लेकर आई। तब उसे भी माननीय उच्चतम न्यायालय की संवैधानिक पीठ ने राय देकर पूर्व में हुए समझौते को सही ठहराया। साथ ही राजस्थान को यमुना बेसिन, आप सब डिस्टर्ब कर रहे हैं, आप इनको रोको, आप सब वो कर रहे हो, गंगानगर वाले डिस्टर्ब कर रहे हो सर, मैं गंगानगर नाम ले रहा हूँ, आप रुको। सही ठहराया। साथ ही राजस्थान को यमुना बेसिन राज्यों तथा हिमाचल, राजस्थान, हरियाणा, उत्तर प्रदेश व केंद्र शासित प्रदेश दिल्ली के मध्य दिनांक 12/5/1994 को वे समझौते के तहत 1.119 BCM यमुना जल का आवंटन हुआ था। इस मामले में ताजेवाला हेड से राजस्थान को उसके हिस्से का पानी प्राप्त नहीं हो रहा है। साथ ही भरतपुर जिले में भी उत्तर प्रदेश तथा हरियाणा राज्य में अनधिकृत दोन से यमुना का पूरा पानी प्राप्त नहीं हो रहा है। साथ ही हरिके बैराज पर स्थित इंदिरा गांधी फीडर के हेडवर्क्स रेगुलेटर की क्षमता 15,000 क्यूसेक से 18,500 क्यूसेक बढ़ाई जाने हेतु भी भारत सरकार के माध्यम से पंजाब सरकार को निर्देश देना अपेक्षित है, ताकि बाढ़ जल की स्थिति को रोका जा सके और वो पानी राजस्थान के काम आ सके। भारत सरकार को राजस्थान की विस्तृत भौगोलिक स्थिति व मरुस्थल को देखते हुए राजस्थान के लंबित जल विवादों का जल्द से जल्द निस्तारण करने की जरूरत है, ताकि राजस्थान में पानी की कमी काफी हद तक दूर की जा सके। इसके लिए केंद्र को संबंधित राज्यों के साथ भी बैठक करके जल्द निर्णय लेना पड़ेगा। अन्यथा वर्षों से लंबित ऐसे मामलों का राजस्थान को उसके हक में हिस्से का पानी उपलब्ध नहीं हो पा रहा सभा महोदय। और पानी को लेकर पिछले 20 साल में लंबे आंदोलन हुए और कई लोगों को अपनी जान भी देनी पड़ी, किसानों को। इसलिए मैं दिल्ली की केंद्र सरकार का ध्यान आकर्षित करूंगा कि राजस्थान के जितने भी लंबित जल विवाद है उनका
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। श्रीमती मंगल सुरेश अंगड़ी जी।
Honorable Speaker, sir, Namaste. About start of the flight service and cargo service from Belgaum Airport in Belgaum, Karnataka. We all are well aware the Belgaum Airport in Karnataka state as the distinction of being one of the oldest airport in the state, having been established and operated since the days of pre-independence era. With the city being educationally forward with the establishment of the Vishweshwaraya Technology University VTU and Rani Channamma University RCU, besides several engineering colleges, medical colleges and dental colleges, and with the Asian one of the biggest and prestigious Kelly's Hospital to being located in the city and it being industrially forward too. It's been the prestigious demand of the residents here to start the daily flight service. In route Belgaum Bengaluru morning flight, Belgaum Gorakhpur Uttar Pradesh, Belgaum Darbhanga Gaya Bihar, Belgaum Shirdi Maharashtra and Belgaum Varanasi, and also to start the cargo services. As Belgaum city as Goa and Maharashtra state as it immediate neighbors, the potential for the further growth of the IT and BT companies herein is exponential, and the city is also the hub of industrial activity. Besides, many people from North Karnataka visit the holy shrines situated in the North India every month. Hence, I request the Honorable Civil Aviation Minister to please look into the matter towards the early start of the flight service on the city routes. Start of cargo service too is also the need of the hour here. It's not out of context if mentioned that the Belgaum Airport has been chosen under Udan Phase 3 and more than 13 air services are already found operational from this airport. Thank you to our Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji and Honorable Civil Aviation Minister Sri Jyotiraj Sindhya ji in this regard. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Item number 17, Weapons of Mass Destruction and Their Delivery Systems, Prohibition of Unlawful Activities Amendment Bill 2022. Honorable Ministers.
Sir, I rise to move that the Weapons of Mass Destruction and their Delivery Systems, Prohibition of Unlawful Activities Amendment Bill 2022 be taken into consideration.
If you want to say regarding the bill, you can.
Sir, the House is aware that India implements its international obligations responsibly, and this is recognized by the international community. Weapons of Mass Destruction and the Delivery Systems Act 2005 prohibits unlawful activities in respect of biological, chemical and nuclear weapons and their delivery system. The initial focus was on export controls because we thought at that time in 2005 mainly in terms of trade of goods and technologies. In recent years, however, international regulations relating to weapons of mass destruction have been strengthened. In particular, the UN Security Council and the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, their recommendations have mandated provisions against financing in relation to these weapons. Presently, there are no specific provisions in the 2005 legislation relating to prohibition or prevention of financing. So, there is a need therefore to amend the WMD Act to do so. The proposed bill is intended to prohibit financing of prohibited activities under the Act or any relevant act in relation to weapons of mass destruction. It also proposes empowering the central government to freeze, seize or attach funds or financial assets or economic resources for preventing such financing or prohibit making available such funds and resources. This bill, sir, is in our national interest. It is in our global interest. It strengthens our credentials and image. I commend it for consideration.
Thank you. Sri Uttam Kumar Reddy ji.
Chairman, sir, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak on the bill to amend the Weapons of Mass Destruction and their Delivery Systems Prohibition of Unlawful Activities Act 2005. As the Minister just stated, the new legislation prohibits the financing of weapons of mass destruction and their delivery systems. Sir, we cannot disagree with the Minister on the bill, but however, I want to make a few observations and suggestions. See, the entire bill speaks about a person, that an individual who is an individual who finances weapons of mass destruction. Probably you have only amended the original act and not had a look at that. But I would like to suggest to you that more than individuals who finance weapons of mass destruction and delivery systems, it is organizations, it is countries. Also, the original act envisaged largely for Indian citizens and had extraterritorial applications. But you should now consider that this act applies to foreigners, foreign citizens where we have extradition agreements with. And as far as countries, I mean, we all know who is financing the terror operations against India. And there is specific information about them financing weapons of mass destruction. I think FATF has also put Pakistan on the grey list. The government of India needs to do more about countries financing weapons of mass destruction against India. Sir, I'd like to bring to the notice of the Minister through you that as far as weapons of mass destruction concerned, I have a personal knowledge. I've served in the Armed Forces of India. I've served at both China and Pakistan borders as a fighter pilot. And it should be alarming that all of Pakistani aircraft now and the modern Chinese aircraft are delivery systems for any of the weapons of mass destruction. They can deliver tactical nuclear weapons. They can deliver chemical weapons. So, on the one hand, you have the Pakistan and Chinese modern acquisitions and present fighter aircraft being able to deliver weapons of mass destruction. On the other hand, the Indian Air Force, with a sanctioned strength of 42 fighter squadrons, has now come down to 28. I think the government should take a very, very serious note of this. So I'd like to also bring to the notice of the government through you, weapons of mass destruction were seriously used last in World War II when the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were totally destroyed by atomic bomb. After that, for many decades, countries were afraid to use weapons of mass destruction. But, sir, I'd like to bring to the notice of the Minister that of late, the countries are becoming more brazen in using these weapons, whether it is in Syria or in the present Russia-Ukraine conflict, where the Russian president himself gives a statement asking his nuclear forces to be alert. I think that this disturbing trend, the government of India must take note, and also the fact that weapons of mass destruction are now becoming more potent and more powerful, whether it is nuclear, whether it is chemical or biological weapons of mass destruction, they are becoming far more potent and powerful now. So I'd like to also caution the government of India that drones are now being manufactured to carry weapons of mass destruction. This is an alarming situation, and we also have a situation now where we have instability in our neighboring country and anything is possible. So I'd like to mention a few points about proliferation financing, which your bill is about. Most countries use existing mechanisms against terrorism or money laundering to achieve non-proliferation financing. The FATF report on proliferation financing suggests countries must also raise awareness and help clarify the obligations on individuals, firms, and financial institutions to be vigilant to proliferation and proliferation financing, as well as provide a basis within the country's legal framework to report suspicious financial activity. So the bill you introduced does not mention either. In order to fully achieve deterrence against proliferation financing, a level of international cooperation is required with respect to extradition. This is to avoid creating safe havens for violators of the law and to ensure mutual legal assistance for investigation and prosecution against proliferation financing, against those who are financing weapons of mass destruction. However, at the present, India is only around 60 extradition treaties or agreements with other nations. Sir, I would like to once again mention to you that delivery systems, please don't go by an earlier definition of delivery systems. All fighter aircraft in Pakistan and China are today capable to deliver weapons of mass destruction. The government of India must take appropriate measures on that. Sir, before I conclude, since we are speaking about
Indian aircrafts are not being capable. Whether Indian aircrafts are not capable of.
I cannot say that, sir. Sir, I would also, before I conclude, sir, President India's nuclear policy doesn't permit tactical nuclear weapons. Sir, I'd like to conclude. The national security, we are talking of weapons of mass destruction. We are talking of financing of weapons of mass destruction. So from its inception, the institution of the National Security Advisor and the Deputy National Security Advisor is being somehow restricted to foreign service and police officers. Would be very, very appropriate that a military expert should also be an NSA of this country, or at least a deputy NSA. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Shri Rajyavardhan Rathod ji.
सर धन्यवाद. आपने मुझे वेपन्स ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शन एंड देयर डिलीवरी सिस्टम्स प्रोहिबिशन ऑफ अनलॉफुल एक्टिविटीज अमेंडमेंट बिल, इसके ऊपर बोलने का मुझे अवसर दिया. सर आप इमेजिन करिए, थका हुआ इंसान पूरे दिन काम करके घर जा रहा हो और अचानक से बिना किसी धमाके के, बिना किसी आग के 11 लोग मर जाएं और 5,500 लोग गंभीर रूप से घायल हो जाएं. ऐसा हुआ. टोक्यो के सबवे के अंदर सेरीन गैस केमिकल एजेंट लीक होने से, इट वाज अ टेररिस्ट अटैक, ऐसा हुआ वहां पर. ये संभव है, ये भारत में भी हो सकता है. और ये तो शुक्र है वहां पर जो केमिकल एजेंट इस्तेमाल हुआ था बहुत पुअर क्वालिटी का था. अगर वो बहुत पोटेंट क्वालिटी का होता तो तबाही मच जाती. उसी तरह 9/11 जो अमेरिका के ऊपर अटैक हुआ, जब अमेरिका उससे उभर रहा था, उसके बाद लोगों के घरों में चिट्ठियां आनी शुरू हुई. जो चिट्ठी खोल रहा था खोलते ही मर जाता था. उसके अंदर एंथ्रैक्स लेस्ड लेटर थे. ऐसा भारत में भी एंथ्रैक्स लेस्ड लेटर्स ऐसा भारत में भी हो सकता है. देश की सरकार की जिम्मेदारी होती है कि देश के नागरिकों को सुरक्षित रखना, और उसीलिए ये जो अमेंडमेंट आया है बिल के अंदर, ये देश को सुरक्षित करने के लिए आया है. आप छोटा राष्ट्र, रोग नेशन, कोई ऐसा टेररिस्ट, इंटरनेशनल टेररिस्ट ग्रुप, वो ये सब करने की संभावना रखते हैं। और ये जो केमिकल एजेंट्स होते हैं, बायोलॉजिकल वेपन्स हैं, इनका बड़ा साधारण तरीके से इनका डेवलपमेंट होता है, इनका कंस्ट्रक्शन, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग बड़ी साधारण तरीके से होती है। ये आप किसी भी रिटेल स्टोर पे जाइए, आप वहां से अलग अलग चीजें खरीद कर उसको जोड़कर आप केमिकल एजेंट बना सकते हैं। और इसीलिए इस बिल को लाया गया है ताकि इसे रोका जा सके। ये जो वेपन्स ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शन है, इसका इस्तेमाल भी अनप्रेडिक्टेबल होता है। ये कहां तक, कितनी दूरी तक नष्ट करेगा, कितनी तबाही मचाएगा, इसका कोई एनालिसिस नहीं करा जा सकता पहले से। मैं अगर कंपेयर करूं, अगर आप गोली चलाते हैं तो सही निशाने पे एक जगह जाके लगती है, लेकिन वेपन्स ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शन कॉम्बेटेंट्स और सिविलियंस में कोई फर्क नहीं करता, तो बड़े पैमाने पे तबाही मचाते हैं, फिर इकोसिस्टम को बर्बाद कर देते हैं। आपके प्लांट्स है, एनिमल्स है, पूरा इकोसिस्टम बर्बाद कर देते हैं। अब ये केमिकल वेपन्स भी हो सकते हैं, बायोलॉजिकल वेपन्स हो सकते हैं, रेडियोलॉजिकल वेपन्स हो सकते हैं, न्यूक्लियर वेपन्स हो सकते हैं। और इन सब के डेवलपमेंट के ऊपर निगाह रखी जा सके, इनकी फाइनेंसिंग कैसे हो रही है, उन लोगों के ऊपर भी निगाह रखी जा सके, इसलिए ये बिल लाया गया है। मैं अभी की बात नहीं करता, मैं 2014 की बात करता, जब सरकार हमारी बनी थी। उस समय एक सर्वे हुआ, लोकनीति सर्वे, और उसमें पूछा गया कि कौन सी पार्टी है जो देश की सुरक्षा को सर्वोपरि मानती है। हु आर यू मोस्ट कॉन्फिडेंट इन नेशनल सिक्योरिटी? 31% लोगों ने बीजेपी को एज द मोस्ट ट्रस्टेड पार्टी कहा जो देश की सुरक्षा करती है। ये 2014 की बात है, और उसके बाद तो अनेकों ऐसे काम हुए हैं जो सरकार ने करे जिससे देश की सुरक्षा हुई है। प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी का एक इंटरव्यू प्रधानमंत्री जी बनने से पहले का, उनसे जब पूछा गया कि जब कोई आतंकी ग्रुप या रोग नेशन हमला करता है तो किस तरह से जवाब देंगे, उन्होंने उस समय कहा था कि मैं उन्हीं की भाषा में जवाब दूंगा। और आज जब सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक्स हो रही हैं या एयर स्ट्राइक्स होती हैं, ये भारत का उन्हीं की तरीके से जवाब देने का एक उदाहरण है। आज देश सिक्योर हो रहा है, जीरो टॉलरेंस है टेररिज्म के ऊपर, इंटरनेशनल एंटी टेरर अलायंस बनाया जा रहा है प्रधानमंत्री जी द्वारा। भारत अपने आप में जो वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर है उसमें उभर रहा है, जो बदलती वैश्विक व्यवस्था है उसके अंदर भारत बदल रहा है।
Prime Minister, and Kargil war took place, it was he who ordered the Air Force to strike with whatever weapons they have so that the war could be ended, and he succeeded. I think as you were in the army, you knew how much casualties you would have had. It was his decision, master decision, that you use whatever you have and destroy the enemy in those very bunkers that were our bunkers that they were sitting in. Let's be clear about it. He did it, and he did it with firm.
बदलती वैश्विक व्यवस्था के अंदर आज भारत का स्थान और मजबूत होता जा रहा है। There are possibilities for India to emerge even stronger. और भारत का मानवता के अंदर हमेशा बड़ा रोल रहा है, अभी नहीं, सदियों से बड़ा रोल रहा है। वासुदेव कुटुंबकम हमारी महा उपनिषद में लिखा है, ऋग्वेदा के अंदर रखा है, ये इसे हम अपने सिद्धांत मानते हैं। और अगर हम पूरी दुनिया को एक परिवार मानते हैं तो पूरी दुनिया को साथ लेकर चलना भी बहुत जरूरी है। और उसी को ध्यान में रखते हुए प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी ने न केवल देश की सुरक्षा को मजबूत करा, बल्कि दूसरे देशों से बात करके इस तरह के नियम भी बनाने शुरू करे ताकि एंटी टेरर अलायंस एक तैयार हो सके। ब्रिक्स जो राष्ट्र है जिसके अंदर 41% पूरी दुनिया की आबादी रहती है, 24% जीडीपी है पूरी दुनिया की, उनके साथ एक काउंटर टेररिज्म प्लान अडॉप्ट करी गई। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने उन्हें प्रेरित करा ये अडॉप्ट करने के लिए। उसी तरह G20 समिट के अंदर कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव ग्लोबल स्ट्रैटेजी टू कॉम्बैट टेररिज्म एंड अ ग्रेटर रोल फॉर यूनाइटेड नेशंस, इसके लिए एम्फेसिस करा प्रधानमंत्री जी ने। बायलैटरल टॉक्स हैं यूएस प्रेसिडेंट के साथ, दूसरे देशों के राष्ट्रपति और प्रधानमंत्रियों के साथ। ये पूरे दुनिया के अंदर अलग अलग राष्ट्रों से बात करके किस तरह से सारे देश इकट्ठे होकर एंटी टेरर एक प्लेटफॉर्म बना सकते हैं, इसके ऊपर बातचीत हुई और उसी का नतीजा है जब प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा कि यूनाइटेड नेशंस को और मजबूत करना चाहिए, तो आज जो बिल आ रहा है वो यूनाइटेड नेशंस की विचारधारा से आ रहा है, उनके सोच के हिसाब से आ रहा है। प्रधानमंत्री जी ने 75th यूनाइटेड नेशन जनरल असेंबली के अंदर टेररिज्म के ऊपर अपनी आवाज उठाई, स्मगलिंग ऑफ इलीगल वेपन्स के ऊपर आवाज उठाई, ड्रग्स और मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग के ऊपर उन्होंने अपनी बात रखी। और बहुत ही रिसेंटली अभी इंडिया का जो डिप्टी परमानेंट रिप्रेजेंटेटिव हैं यूनाइटेड नेशन के, उन्होंने बायोलॉजिकल और टॉक्सिन वेपन्स के ऊपर जो कन्वेंशन है उसको और मजबूत करने की बात रखी। भारत लगातार देश की, दुनिया की जो ताकतें हैं उन्हें प्रेरित कर रहा है कि इस तरह के कानून बने ताकि टेररिस्ट को कहीं छुपने की जगह ना मिले। ये जो वेपन्स ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शन है, ये नॉन स्टेट एक्टर्स टेरर आउटफिट्स के पास ये पहुंच सकते हैं और उससे बड़े पैमाने पर तबाही मच सकती है। जिस तरह से मैंने कहा कि अभी तक जो कानून था 2005 का वो सीमित था, उस कानून को और मजबूत करा गया है। अब सरकार ऐसे व्यक्ति जो वेपन्स ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शन के अंदर शामिल है, उनकी फंडिंग के लिए, उनकी ट्रांसपोर्टेशन के लिए, किसी भी तरह जो उसमें सम्मिलित हैं, उनके अकाउंट्स, उनके एसेट्स को फ्रीज करने की ताकत रखती है। 2005 का जो लेजिस्लेशन था वो बहुत सीमित था, वो सिर्फ मैन्युफैक्चरिंग के ऊपर फोकस था, कोई जो मैन्युफैक्चर करेगा उसको उसके ऊपर कानून लगाया जा सकता है। लेकिन क्या सरकार इंतजार करेगी कि जब तक पूरा का पूरा वेपन ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शन मैन्युफैक्चर हो तभी वो उस व्यक्ति के ऊपर कार्रवाई कर सके? उसमें तो बहुत देर हो जाएगी, प्रोलिफरेशन की बड़ी बड़ी संभावनाएं रहती हैं। और इसी कारण से ये अमेंडमेंट लाया गया है आज इस बिल के अंदर। जैसे मैंने पहले कहा, जीरो टॉलरेंस टुवर्ड्स टेररिज्म, जीरो टॉलरेंस टुवर्ड्स स्टेट एग्रेसर्स। और ये जो वेपन्स ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शन है बड़े साधारण तरीके से बनाए जा सकते हैं। एक टेस्ट केस करा गया अमेरिका के अंदर कि एक सिविलियन किस तरह से रिटेल शॉप्स में जाकर इन केमिकल्स को इकट्ठा करके एक वेपन बना सकता है। और ये पूरी हर तरह से संभावना है कि ऐसा संभव है और इसीलिए इसको रोकने के लिए ये कानून लाया जा रहा है। शेल कंपनीज हैं, छोटी छोटी चीजें तैयार करेंगी, वो अपने आप में पूरा वेपन नहीं होगा डिस्ट्रक्शन का, लेकिन उसका एक हिस्सा हो सकता है। और ऐसे कई हिस्सों को जब जोड़ा जाए तो वेपन पूरा का पूरा हथियार तैयार हो सकता है। और इसी कारण से जितनी भी कंपनीज हैं, चाहे छोटी कंपनी हो, बड़ी कंपनी हो, जो भी इन केमिकल्स को, बायोलॉजिकल वेपन्स को तैयार कर रही है, उसको रोका जा सके। मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग और फंडिंग ऑफ वेपन्स ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शन, ये दोनों एक दूसरे से जुड़े हुए हैं। और इसीलिए फाइनेंस के ऊपर कि रूट क्या है फाइनेंस की, रास्ता क्या है जहां से फाइनेंस आ रहा है, कौन व्यक्ति इसको फाइनेंस कर रहा है, उसके ऊपर फोकस करना बहुत जरूरी है। ये एक जीता जागता उदाहरण है कि 9/11 के बाद अमेरिका के ऊपर बहुत कम आतंकी हमले हुए और उसका कारण यही था कि उन्होंने रूट कॉज को पकड़ा, जहां पर फाइनेंसिंग हो रही है उसको पकड़ा और उस कारण से इसको रोका जा सका। और इसीलिए आज 2005 का जो एक्ट के अमेंडमेंट आ रहा है, इसके अंदर मुख्य बात यही है कि जो फाइनेंस कर रहा है अब उसको गिरफ्तार करा जा सकता है, अब उसको सजा मिल सकती है। तो जितने भी फाइनेंसियर्स होंगे इसके, वो उतने ही शामिल होंगे जितने मैन्युफैक्चरर्स हैं इसके। यूनाइटेड नेशन रेजोल्यूशन से ये बिल्कुल उसी विचारधारा का है। इनफैक्ट द प्रपोज्ड अमेंडमेंट अलाइंस विद द यूनाइटेड नेशन रेजोल्यूशन 1540 ऑफ 2004। सो महोदय, हम हर तरह से भारत को मजबूत करने के लिए देश की, दुनिया की जो ताकतें हैं उनके साथ मिलकर, यूनाइटेड नेशन की विचारधारा के साथ मिलते हुए ऐसे कानून बना रहे हैं जिससे देश के अंदर सभी नागरिक सुरक्षित रह सके और कहीं इस तरह का हमला ना हो जो नर्व गैस एजेंट्स जैसे टोक्यो में हुआ या एंथ्रिक्स लेस्ड लेटर्स हुआ या और कोई नई तरीके, कोई क्रिएटिव तरीके से कोई डिस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ वेपन्स ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शन लेकर आए। FATF स्टैंडर्ड्स को ध्यान में रखते हुए ये अमेंडमेंट लाया जा रहा है। हमारी प्रॉक्सिमिटी कुछ ऐसे देशों के साथ है जो वेपन्स ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शन के विचारों के साथ वो चलती है और कई बार वो वेपन्स ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शन या केमिकल वेपन्स या बायोलॉजिकल वेपन्स इस्तेमाल कर चुके हैं या इस्तेमाल करने की संभावना रखते हैं। इसीलिए हमारे देश को पूरी तरह से तैयार रहने की जरूरत है कि हम हर हद तक अपने नागरिकों को सुरक्षित रख सकें। आज जो ये अमेंडमेंट मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स लेकर आई है, मैं उन्हें इसके लिए बधाई देता हूं और समर्थन करता हूं।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। थैंक यू वेरी मच। श्री ए राजा जी।
Mr. Chairman, sir. Thank you for the opportunity that has been given to me to comment upon the bill, namely the Weapons of Mass Destruction and the Delivery System Prohibition of Unlawful Activities Amendment Bill 2022. Sir, I am happy that the government has brought the bill to strengthen the earlier legislation which was brought during the UPA government in 2004 and 2005. Sir, I recall India's role in the domain of disarmament. Sir, ever since the independence, India's foreign policy has been pursuit of global nuclear disarmament. Sir, in 1998, at the special sessions of the United General Assembly on disarmament at New York, the then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi gave a proposal to the United Nations for a phased elimination of nuclear weapons in a time-bound framework. But that attempt was not succeeded since some of the countries were not cooperating at the time. Ever since, time and again we proved that India's status, though we got status as nuclear weapon state, we did not mitigate our stand that our objective is nuclear weapon-free world. Sir, India all along advocated an international non-proliferation agreement under which nuclear weapon status would agree to stop, states would agree to stop to produce the fissile material of weapon purpose. But all the attempts, including the proposal that was given by late Prime Minister, then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, were futile, since nuclear weapon power states, those who are declared as nuclear weapon power states, are not willing to accept some of the terms which was proposed by Rajiv Gandhi and in that time. Sir, we have come across in 1972 and 1998 some exercise like in Pokhran, but that does not give any face to us that we are against the disarmament. We proved that all our efforts in this nuclear domain is only for our security and integrity. Sir, the bill is aimed to fulfill the limited purpose, mainly to prohibit financing of any activity in relation to weapons of mass destruction and freeze such accounts if any. That is the only provision available in the bill. As such, it is completely consequential to the earlier legislation. As such, everybody in the House has to welcome it. There is no deviation in the stand. Sir, on the other hand, by using this occasion, I want to touch some infirmities in the NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty. Though we are not party to that, but letter and spirit of the record, we are abiding the NPT treaty. Not as a member of the NPT, but as a follower of NPT, we are strictly following the treaty. As such, I want to recall some memories. Sir, whether these legislations passed by India or any other country in NPT or non-NPT, what type of tangible achievements is going to give? That is apprehension in every mind of the people. Irrespective of state, irrespective of political entity of the state, those who really want to have peace by making such a legislation in the respective parliaments, where is the mechanism we are having to implement it in a holistic manner? That is the problem. My friend from National Indian Congress says we are having no adequate mechanism in terms of aircrafts, in terms of other mechanism to curb this menace. But when we are making legislation like this, To implement such a legislation, what type of treaty we are going to enter with other countries? Suppose these countries are not in our line. What will be the solution? What will be the purpose of these legislations? I am having my own doubts. Sir, what happened in what America did in Iran in the name of checking proliferation? By using the proliferation, America entered into Iran and did all these inhuman activities. And mass destruction was done in the name of proliferation. Nobody can stop it. America did it in Iran. Now what happened in Ukraine? The same America not able to stop in Ukraine. The Russia cannot be stopped by the same America. Wrong was done by America. Now some other wrong is being done by Ukraine. But both the countries were silent. The entire Russia, the entire humanity is in peril, in suffering. So that is why I am having my own apparition. I want to submit before the House. I want to invite the attention of the Honorable Minister through you, sir. Making legislations in these domains, I think that cannot be a holistic approach to curb the menace. Some treaty, some international treaty, let it be initiated through United Nations. I think that my learned friend, Honorable Minister, is having rich experience through his service in various countries. You might have had many ministers, many political heads of the countries across the world. You must have witnessed of incidents in respective countries where you work. So what we need is, state-wise legislation is, yes, it is essentially needed. But collectively and holistically, what will be the mechanism through the United Nations or any other forum to curb or not only curb the menace, to implement this type of legislation irrespective of state boundaries in a proper manner, in letter and spirit manner. So that has to be addressed properly. Sir, similarly, what type of hypocrisy is being perpetuated in North Korea by America? There are more and more incidents in the world. What is happening in Ukraine as such? But the countries, including America, now become helpless to address these issues. There are 100 incidents where pilferages in black market by underworld of passing nuclear knowledge and material and equipments. Minister might have come across all these things. Sir, at present, as reported, there are an estimated 34,500 nuclear weapons are in existence over 50 countries, excluding weapons with the terrorists. This House aware, few years back, a Pakistani nuclear scientist has stirred the issue of transfer of technology with regard to nuclear weapons by proliferating them to the other countries. World has witnessed. What happened? A new emerging situation, an emerging challenge about the proliferation has arisen as a scientist of our neighbor country has violated the commitment given to us by Lahore Declaration. What Lahore Declaration says, Minister must aware, that was entered between the Atal Bihari Vajpayee and the Musharraf. I quote, Lahore Declaration, the two sides will engage bilateral consultation on nuclear doctrines to develop confidence building to avoid conflicts between us. This declaration was done at Lahore by the then Prime Minister Vajpayee and Musharraf. Whether it was followed by Pakistan, bilateral talks, agreements, treaties, diplomatic relations at the minister level or ambassador level or secretary level, these are all become mockery nowadays. That is why government has to think what type of mechanism we can put forth before the United Nations to address these issues holistic manner. Sir, there is a big market of nuclear trafficking, as United Nations report says. Sir, in the report suspects there are underworld operations enormously backed behind. Still no holistic approach. Sir, few years back, United Nations Security Council requires all states to adopt measures to criminalize the assistance to acquire weapons of the mass destruction. I think that this bill is brought in the line of the United Nations Security Council to fulfill the obligation, I think. Am I correct? I think. Sir, for this reason, I welcome the efforts taken by the Honorable Minister and the government. I conclude the words of the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh in his first address to the nation. I quote, India is responsible nuclear power. We will continue to work to prevent proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. At the same time, we remain committed to the goal of universal nuclear disarmament, unquote. Sir, I am happy this government also keeping the commitment which was given by Dr. Manmohan Singh without reservation and criticism. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Professor Saugata Roy ji.
Very nice. Thank you, sir. Sir, I speak on the weapons of mass destruction and their delivery systems prohibition of unlawful activities amendment bill 2022. And we support the bill. This is brought in the interest of national security and national interest. That's why we support the bill. Sir, this bill aims at this bill is formed out of the recommendation of the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, to prohibit financing of terrorist activities. It empowers central government to freeze, seize or attach funds or economic resources for preventing such financing, prohibit making available funds, etc. in relation to weapons of mass destruction. This bill has been brought in a hurry because only on 4th April, the United Nations meeting at Geneva expressed deep concern over proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Our representative Pankaj Sharma said that India has been drawing the attention of the world towards this threat and need to strengthen international cooperation to address them through its annual consensus. We are deeply concerned about the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and their delivery system, which endangers international peace and security. The whole fear is about a terrorist getting his hand on a weapon of mass destruction. What are weapons of mass destruction? Nuclear, radiological, biological or chemical weapons. The last time weapon of mass destruction was used was in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 1945. Since then, though the world has seen many small wars, weapons of mass destruction which kill millions of people in minutes have not been used. This is called the deterrence. Deterrence of, it's called MAD, mutually assured destruction. That's why nobody goes for it. But now if you see, there are 8 countries in the world. China, Russia, North Korea, Pakistan, India, USA, UK. 8 countries which have got weapons of mass destruction. This includes India and Pakistan. And 5 of these countries are signatories to the NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty. India has not been a signatory. We have always cited our own security concerns, and that's why we have not signed the NPT. Though we are for disarmament, Raja spoke at length about Rajiv Gandhi's initiative in the matter. Now the important thing is to ensure the safety of our country in future. We may notice that in 9/11, America had the Twin Towers destroyed. Since then they set up a Department of Homeland Security. And since that time, no major terrorist incident has happened in the US. And if you go to USA, not as a minister, as an ordinary man, you realize that they have really tightened their homeland security. The main point is to tighten our own homeland security so that this does not happen. Now, having said that, no, that's not very important. You went to Bonga and lost all the seats. That's why you're in your mind always that place. Why you forget your defeat? Now you were going around in those villages, you lost all the seats. Why you're talking about? So you are now Minister of Government of India. You forget about your defeat in Bengal.
Kindly address to the chair.
Sir, I'll address. We have gone through this process long. We remember Pokhran, 1998. We remember just to get out of US sanctions, Jaswant Singh and Stuart Talbot talked for hours together, days together, to bring the Americans to understand our position with regard to vis-a-vis nuclear proliferation. Now, the External Affairs Minister, who, as I said, is a diplomat and taciturn, doesn't waste a single word, doesn't make a single wrong comment, made a comment yesterday that the world order is changing. And he said, we will be on the right side of the world order. I'd like to know from the Honourable Minister, what world order is he talking of? And which side will be? Because yesterday I raised some questions. He was busy and I was insignificant. He didn't reply. I said, why has India gone into passive diplomacy, where our diplomacy consists only of the Prime Minister ringing up Putin and Zelensky, and the External Affairs Minister meeting the British Foreign Secretary or the Russian Foreign Minister? Don't we have anything else? When tanks of one country are pummeling another country, leave aside whether Zelensky is pro-American or Putin is right, we don't. But the courage that Ukrainians have shown, everybody thought that Russian tanks will cut through Ukraine like knife in a butter. But the people in Ukraine have resisted, which proves that nationalism is still a force in this world. We have not been able to. अरे बाबा, रूस अटैक करेगा वो अच्छा।
आप अपनी बात रखिए, अपनी बात रखिए।
ये प्रोफेशनल हेकलर को रुकिए ना सर। So, sir, I am saying that we should not take sides. But I say that when a country is being attacked, even today's day and age, we should sit up and take notice. Jawaharlal Nehru would not have been a silent spectator. India's Panchsheel does not advise being a silent spectator to efforts at genocide. India must be proactive, considering her size, her importance. Our diplomacy, ये आप लोग को जो भी बोलेगा जयशंकर को भी बोलने नहीं दूंगा। आप बड़ा हेकलर बने हैं।
स्वागत रॉय जी,
आप लोग कुछ नहीं करते। ये सही जगह चेंज करके इधर बैठता, रोज यहाँ पर हेकलिंग करता, क्या होता है?
अपने आवाज को जरा, अपने आवाज को जरा कम रखो। जब आप you are speaking on international relations.
Why should I be disturbed? Tell me.
You are speaking on the international relation. ऐसी बात मत बोलो कि इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन में कोई स्ट्रेन हो। ऐसी बात मत बोलो कि इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन में कोई स्ट्रेन हो। आप अपनी बात रखिए अभी।
I shall not be cowed down by threats. I am addressing you.
No question of threat. But आप ऐसी बात ना बोलो कि इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन में कोई कड़वास आई। ऐसी बात ना बोलो।
Sir, I am slowly in the process of concluding the speech. I started by supporting the bill. I started by praising.
आप अपनी बात रखिए.
I started by praising.
You address to chair.
I said that the foreign minister must persuade the government to take a more proactive role in the matter of conflict between Ukraine and Russia. What is wrong in that? And I am again urging him to take a more proactive role in bringing the world from the brink of mutually assured destruction, Matt, in having a better nuclear control regime. India is totally silent on this issue. Only some officers go to this place. We have not heard a single statement by the Prime Minister on the problem of nuclear proliferation. We have not had a major statement from the Prime Minister on the matter of one country invading another country. We have not had a statement. Yes, we have. It said that foreign policy is enlightened self-interest. I know that. We have read what Machiavelli said. But foreign policy is not Machiavelli alone. Foreign policy is also Panchsheel. It's also Gautam Buddha's teaching. We are a 5,000-year-old country. We must have a proper foreign policy. That's why, sir, again, assuring the Minister of our full support in any further efforts he may take towards achieving the activities of rogue states, rogue individuals, criminals who tend to bring weapons of mass destruction. But let me tell you, sir, it has been shown on the internet. They are showing methods in which a college boy can assemble together a small nuclear device. The point is not that. Point is to have a vigilance. Abraham Lincoln said that eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. Are we vigilant enough? Do we keep track of who's doing what in the country? That is the important thing. We must defend ourselves. Lastly, sir, I'll stop by quoting two lines by John Donne, the famous poet, quoted in Ernest Hemingway's For Whom the Bell Tolls. He said, every man's death diminishes me, for I am involved in mankind. Therefore ask me not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. When somebody else is attacked, I feel the bell is tolling for me. We also have to defend our heights in Galwan, in Pangong Lake. We have to defend our areas in Arunachal. We have to find out friends who defend us in this difficult situation, and that should be crux of our foreign policy. With that, sir, I support the bill and thank you for allowing me.
Thank you very much. Shri Sanjeev Kumar ji. It should be removed from the record.
समय इनको पता ही नहीं कि किसी मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट की कोई सीट केवल कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर को छोड़कर और अपोजिशन के कुछ, वो मेरी इच्छा है, वो चेयर तय करेगा।
संजीव कुमार जी
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, for giving me this opportunity to speak on the bill on behalf of ISRCP party. The Weapons of Mass Destruction and Their Delivery Systems, Prohibition of Unlawful Activities Amendment Bill 2022. Sir, this bill seeks to amend the Principal Act of 2005. The proposed amendment states that no persons in finance any activity which is prohibited under this Act or under the United Nations Security Council Act of 1947 or any such relevant act, and that Government of India shall have power to freeze or attach the assets of such person or organization indulging directly or indirectly in such lawful activities. So the main objective of the bill is to prevent unlawful activities relating to biological, chemical, nuclear weapons, such as export of weapons or transfer of technology to anti-social elements. Sir, YSRCP supports the proposed amendments because it is related to the national security and security of the mankind. Sir, I would like to speak in Telugu, sir. ఒక సాధారణ కుటుంబం నుంచి వచ్చిన నాలాంటి వ్యక్తికి దేవాలయం లాంటి ఈ పార్లమెంట్లో మాట్లాడే అవకాశం ఇచ్చిన మా ముఖ్యమంత్రి గౌరవ వైఎస్ జగన్మోహన్ రెడ్డి గారికి, కర్నూలు ప్రజలకు నేను ధన్యవాదాలు తెలియజేసుకుంటూ ఈ బిల్ మీద నా అభిప్రాయం తెలియజేస్తున్నాను. ఇటీవల యునైటెడ్ నేషన్స్ సెక్యూరిటీ కౌన్సిల్ వంటి అంతర్జాతీయ సంస్థలు సామూహిక విధ్వంసక ఆయుధాలు అంటే వెపన్స్ ఆఫ్ మాస్ డిస్ట్రక్షన్ వ్యతిరేకంగా నిబంధనలు రూపొందించాయి. యునైటెడ్ నేషన్స్ సెక్యూరిటీ కౌన్సిల్ తమ 1540 తీర్మానం ద్వారా సభ్య దేశాలపై ఒక బాధ్యతను విధించింది. అంతర్జాతీయ సమాజానికి అనుగుణంగా మనం కూడా మన చట్టాలను సవరించుకోవాల్సిన అవసరం ఉన్నది. ఇది మన అంతర్జాతీయ బాధ్యత. కాబట్టి ఈరోజు ఈ చట్ట సవరణ చేసుకోవాల్సిన ఆవశ్యకత వచ్చిందని నేను భావిస్తున్నాను. యునైటెడ్ నేషన్స్ సెక్యూరిటీ కౌన్సిల్ రెజల్యూషన్ ప్రకారం తప్పు చేసిన దేశంపై ఆర్థిక ఆంక్షలు విధిస్తారు. ఈరోజు ఈ చట్ట సవరణ ద్వారా మన ఉద్దేశాలు ఏమిటంటే, ఒకటి, సామూహిక వినాశకర ఆయుధాలు తయారు చేసే వారిని శిక్షించటం మరియు అటువంటి చట్ట వ్యతిరేక పనులకు సహకరిస్తున్న సంస్థలు లేక వ్యక్తులకు ఆర్థిక మూలాన్ని స్తంభింపచేయటం, అటువంటి నిధులు సేకరణ జరగకుండా చూడటం. 2005లో అమలుకు వచ్చిన ప్రధాన చట్టం 10 సంవత్సరాల తర్వాత ఈ సవరణకు నోచుకోవడానికి చాలా అభినందనీయం. మన శత్రు దేశాలు మనతో పోరాడే దమ్ము లేక మన దారి తప్పిన యువకులకు ఒక విషబీజం నాటి మనపై యుద్ధాలు చేయడానికి ప్రయత్నం చేస్తున్నాయి, ఒక ఇండైరెక్ట్ వార్. సో అటువంటి వారికి కూడా ఈ చట్టం ఒక హెచ్చరిక కావాలని నేను భావిస్తున్నాను. నిరాయుధీకరణ విషయంలో భారతదేశం ముందంజలో ఉన్నది. ఎందుకంటే ప్రపంచం అంతా ఒక కుటుంబం అని మనం భావిస్తున్నాం. మనం బాగుండాలి, ప్రపంచం అంతా బాగుండాలని కోరుకునే మనస్తత్వం మనది. ప్రపంచవ్యాప్తంగా అణ్వాయుధాలను రద్దు చేయాలని మనం కోరుకుంటున్నాం. ఆ ప్రయత్నంలో భాగమే ఈ చట్ట సవరణ అని చెప్పి నేను భావిస్తున్నాను. అణ్వాయుధాలకు సంబంధించి భారతదేశం 2003 నుండి నో ఫస్ట్ యూస్ విధానానికి కట్టుబడి ఉన్నది. ఒకవేళ మనపై దాడి జరిగితే శత్రువులపై ప్రతీకారం తీర్చుకునే సత్తా మనం శాంతిని కోరుకుంటున్నాం. భారతదేశం అనేక దశాబ్దాలుగా ఉగ్రవాదంపై పోరాటం చేస్తూనే ఉన్నది. వెపన్స్ ఆఫ్ మాస్ డిస్ట్రక్షన్ తీవ్రవాదులకు చేరితే దారి పర్యవసానాలు ఏ విధంగా ఉంటాయి మనం ఊహించుకోగలం. ఈ యునైటెడ్ నేషన్స్ తీర్మానాన్ని మనం గౌరవించాలి. అలాగే యావత్ ప్రపంచాన్ని కూడా గౌరవింపలేక చేయాలని చెప్పి నేను ప్రభుత్వాన్ని కోరుతున్నాను. సార్, బయలాజికల్ వెపన్స్ గురించి ఈ సందర్భంలో మనం ముఖ్యంగా ప్రస్తావించుకోవాలి. కోవిడ్ మహమ్మారి ఒక బయలాజికల్ వార్ఫైర్గా లాగా మనం భావించాలి. ఎందుకంటే ఏదైనా ఒక కొత్త వైరస్ మానవుడికి స్ప్రెడ్ అవ్వాలి అంటే ముందు ఒక జంతువులో వ్యాప్తి చెందాలి. ఆ జంతువులో క్రమంగా ఎన్నో మ్యూటేషన్స్ జరిగిన తర్వాత అది మానవుడికి వ్యాపించాలి. ఇంతవరకు ప్రపంచంలో ఎవరు కూడా ఈ కోవిడ్ ఒక జంతువు ద్వారా మనిషికి వచ్చిందని చెప్పి రుజువు చేయలేదు. ఎందుకంటే మేధావులు ఏమనుకుంటున్నారంటే, అమెరికాలో ఉన్న మేధావులు తర్వాత చైనాలో ఉన్న ప్రభుత్వం కలిసి ఒక ప్రయోగం చేయబోయి కరోనా వైరస్ను గాడి తప్పి వాళ్ళ ప్రయోగాలన్నీ కూడా మానవాళికి వ్యాప్తి చెందిందని చెప్పి చాలామంది అనుకుంటున్నారు. ఈ కరోనా సమయంలో మనం ఏ విధంగా మానవాళి అల్లాడిపోయిందో మనం అందరం చూశాం. కేవలం ఒక ఆక్సిజన్ మనం సరఫరా చేయలేక లక్షల మందిని కోల్పోయాం. నేను ఇప్పుడు ఈ సభ ద్వారా కోరుకుంటున్నది ఏంటంటే, కోవిడ్ అన్నది, కరోనా అన్నది 60 సంవత్సరాల నుంచి మానవాళికి తెలుసు. ఎన్నో రోగాలు మనకు వచ్చాయి, మనం ట్రీట్మెంట్ చేసుకున్నాం. కానీ కరోనా కంటే భయంకరమైన రోగాలు ఎన్నో ఉన్నాయి. ఈ బయలాజికల్ వెపన్స్ ద్వారా అటువంటి దాడి మన దేశంపై జరిగితే మనం సిద్ధంగా ఉన్నామా? కేవలం ఒక ఆక్సిజన్ ఇవ్వలేక మనం లక్షల మంది కోల్పోయామే. మరి ఈనాడు మనం ఈరోజు ఒక ఎయిమ్ పెట్టుకొని ఒక స్ట్రాటజీ వేసుకొని ఇటువంటి విపత్కర పరిస్థితులు కూడా మనం ఉత్తరోత్తర ఎదుర్కోవాల్సిన అవసరం ఉన్నదని చెప్తున్నాను. ఈ సందర్భంగా మనం మన ప్రాథమిక వైద్యాన్ని మెరుగుపరుచుకోవాలి. ఆక్సిజన్ తర్వాత మిగతా వెంటిలేటర్లు, మందులు ఇటువంటివన్నీ కూడా క్షేత్రస్థాయిలో, గ్రామ స్థాయిలో కూడా మనం ఏర్పాటు చేసుకోవాలి. ఇది మన ప్రణాళిక కావాలి. కేవలం ఇటువంటి చట్టాలు చేయడం వల్ల ఉత్తరోత్తర మనకు వచ్చే విపత్కర పరిస్థితులను మనం ఎదుర్కొనే సత్తాను మనం ఉన్నదని చెప్పి మనం భావించకూడదు. ఏ విధంగా మనం నీ జర్క్ రిఫ్లెక్స్ అంటే ఒక చిన్న దెబ్బకు విపరీతమైన రియాక్షన్ చూశామో, ఒక చిన్న కరోనా వైరస్కి ఎట్లా విలవిలలాడిపోయామో మనం ఒకసారి గ్రహించి ఉత్తరోత్తర అటువంటి పరిస్థితి రాకుండా మనం చేసుకోవాలని చెప్పి నేను కోరుతున్నాను. ఇంకొకటి, నాకు గత 4 దశాబ్దాలుగా ఒక ప్రశ్న ఉన్నది. అది ఈ సభ ద్వారా పెద్దలు చెప్తారని చెప్పి దానికి సమాధానం కోరుకుంటున్నాను. భారతదేశం 1000 సంవత్సరాలు బానిసత్వం చేసింది. పరాయి పాలనలో 1000 సంవత్సరాలు బానిసత్వం ఎందుకు చేసింది? ఒకటి, మనకు ఆనాడు ఆధునిక ఆయుధాలు లేవు. తర్వాత 750 మంది రాజులలో ఐకమత్యం లేదు. కానీ అటువంటి అటువంటి పరిస్థితి ఈనాడు లేదు. మనమంతా దేశమంతా ఏకమైపోయాం. మనలో కూడా మంచి పవర్ఫుల్ వెపన్స్ ఉన్నాయి మనకు. కాబట్టి ఏ దేశమైనా సరే మనల్ని చూసి భయపడే స్థితికి మనం వచ్చాం. ఇది అన్ని విధాలుగా ఈ ప్రభుత్వం కృషి చేస్తున్నందుకు నేను సంతోషంగా సభకు ధన్యవాదాలు తెలియజేసుకుంటున్నాను. అదేవిధంగా బడుగు బలహీన వర్గాల ఆశాజ్యోతి, ఈ దేశంలో ట్రెండ్ సెట్టర్ అయిన వైఎస్ జగన్మోహన్ రెడ్డి గారు నాకు అవకాశం ఇచ్చినందుకు నేను ధన్యవాదాలు తెలియజేసుకుంటూ, అట్లాగే దేశ భద్రత గురించి మాట్లాడే అవకాశం ఇచ్చిన అధ్యక్షుల వారికి నేను నమస్కరిస్తూ జై హింద్.
Thank you very much, Shri Vinayak Raut ji.
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय. आज सम्माननीय मिनिस्टर जी ने, मंत्री जी ने वेपन्स ऑफ मास डिस्ट्रक्शन एंड देयर डिलीवरी सिस्टम अमेंडमेंट बिल 2022 जो लाए है उसे समर्थन करने के लिए मैं खड़ा हूँ. सभापति महोदय, आप जानते हैं कि पूरे देश में, अपने देश में, भारत देश में, हिंदुस्तान में पिछले कई वर्षों से जिस तरीके से आतंकवादी गतिविधियां बढ़ती जा रही हैं और ऐसे आतंकवादी गतिविधियों में कई भारतीय जनों की जाने जाती है. सिर्फ अपने देश में नहीं है, पूरे विश्व में आतंकवादी गतिविधियां जिस तरीके से बढ़कर पूरे देश की शांतता और पूरे देश में जो हलचल मचा दी है उसके ऊपर काबू लाने की आवश्यकता है. उसके ऊपर ये जिस तरीके से वेपन का इस्तेमाल करके पूरे दुनिया को एक परेशानी निर्माण करने की जिस तरीके से कोशिश हो रही है उसके ऊपर काबू लाने की आवश्यकता है. मैं धन्यवाद दूंगा मंत्री महोदय जी से. भारत की तरफ से आज आपने इनिशिएटिव लिया है, ये बिल आपने पेश किया, मैं आपका आभार व्यक्त करता हूं और चाहता हूं कि भविष्य में पूरे दुनिया में शांति और सुरक्षा निर्माण करने के लिए भारत ऐसे आगे बढ़ते रहेंगे. खास करके विधेयक के माध्यम से 17 साल पुराने कानून जो थे 2005 का, उसमें संशोधन की पहली बार है और इस विधेयक के माध्यम से सामूहिक विनाश यानी मास डिस्ट्रक्शन जिसे बोलते हैं, ऐसे हथियार जैसे परमाणु हो, रेडियोलॉजिकल रासायनिक हो, जैविक हथियार हो या अन्य उपकरण हो, ऐसे गैर कानूनी उपयोग पर अंकुश लाना, उसके ऊपर पाबंदी लाने का काम इस विधेयक के माध्यम से होने वाले है. जैसे कि संयुक्त राष्ट्र परिषद सुरक्षा परिषद जो है, यूनाइटेड नेशन सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल, इनकी ओर से भी अहम निर्णय लिए गए हैं कि ऐसे में 17 साल पुराने कानून के ऊपर संशोधन करें और उसके ऊपर नया सुझाव लाकर नई दिशा से बढ़ते जाए. इसके लिए इस कानून की आवश्यकता निर्माण हो चुकी है. जैसे कि सौगतदा ने कहा कि सामूहिक विनाश यानी मास डिस्ट्रक्शन के हथियार जिनके पास है, ऐसे 8 देश है कि उन्होंने खुद करके डिक्लेयर कर रहे हैं कि हमारे पास ऐसे वेपन्स है. और इस 8 देश में चीन है, फ्रांस है, भारत है, उत्तर कोरिया, पाकिस्तान, रूस, यूनाइटेड किंगडम और अमेरिका, ऐसे 8 देशों ने खुद करके डिक्लेयर किया. और आगे ऐसी शांतता बनाने की आवश्यकता जब पैदा होगी पूरे विश्व में, तो ये ऐसे जो विनाशकारी परमाणु है, विनाशकारी अस्त्र है, उसका नाश करने की तैयारी इस सारे देशों ने दिखाई है. उसमें भारत अपना देश है, ये हमें गर्व की बात है. विधेयक में जैविक, रासायनिक और परमाणु हथियारों और उनके विवरण प्रणाली से संबंधित गैर कानूनी गतिविधियों को शामिल किया गया है और सामूहिक विनाश के हथियारों और उनके वितरण प्रणालियों और रोकथाम के लिए सामग्री, उपक्रम और प्रौद्योगिकरण के निर्यात पर नियंत्रण रखने के लिए एकीकृत कानूनी उपायोजन का प्रावधान इसमें करने की आवश्यकता है. सारे देश उन्होंने खुद के ऊपर भी कंट्रोल लाना चाहिए. ऐसी गतिविधियां नहीं होना चाहिए, गैर कानूनी कार्रवाई नहीं होनी चाहिए, आतंकवादी कार्रवाई नहीं होनी चाहिए. इसके लिए उन्हें सपोर्ट न करे, उन्हें प्रोत्साहन न दे, उसके ऊपर पाबंदी लाए. ऐसे सारे देशों ने निश्चय करने की आवश्यकता है. उसमें अपना देश, भारत देश आगे जा रहा है, ये सबसे बड़ी बात है. अंतर्राष्ट्रीय संगठन जो है, इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन और यूएनएससी यूनाइटेड नेशन सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल के अनुसार सामूहिक विनाश के हथियार कम समय में बड़ी संख्या से लोगों को मार सकते हैं। अभी तो दिख रहा है, जैसा यूक्रेन रशिया का जब युद्ध शुरू होने के बाद जिस तरीके से ऐसे परमाणु का ऐसे हथियार का उपयोग करने के बाद कितनी संख्या से मानव जाति का संहार करने का संवार हो रहा है, ये पूरी दुनिया जान रहे हैं। और इसीलिए मास डिटेक्शन कि ऐसे करने वाले जो वेपन्स है उसका विनाश करने की एक आवश्यकता निर्माण हो चुका है। परमाणु हथियार मुक्त दुनिया का पक्षधर है। ये भारत ने अपने भारत देश के विदेश सचिव इन्होंने अपने देश की जब उन्होंने प्रतिनिधित्व किया तभी उन्होंने कहा कि अपना देश भारत देश परमाणु हथियार का पक्षधर है और परमाणु हथियारों के पूर्ण उन्मूलन करने के लक्ष्य में भारत आगे रहेगा। मैं उनको बधाई देता हूं। आतंकवादियों के हाथ में केमिकल हथियार पहुंचने के साजिश में कितना नुकसान होता है पूरे देश में, अलग अलग देश में, वो इसके पर अभी जो यूक्रेन और रशिया के युद्ध में दिख रहा है। लेकिन साथ साथ में सभापति महोदय, इस विधेयक के माध्यम से मैं कहना चाहता हूं कि जैसे कि इससे पहले कई वक्तों ने कहा 26/11 में तो अमेरिका में आतंकवादियों ने ऐसे विनाशकारी वेपन्स लेकर उसका हमला किया, लेकिन अपने देश में जैसे मुंबई ने 92-93 में बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट देखे, सैकड़ों जने की जानें वहां मुंबई के बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट में गई है। उसके बाद 26/11 ये तो बहुत बड़ा आतंकवादी हमला उस वक्त भी हुआ था। और सभापति महोदय, इस संसद के बाहर भी जिस तरीके से 2001 में आतंकवादियों ने जो हमला कर दिया, तो जिस तरीके से आतंकवादियों के हाथ में जो वेपन्स आते हैं और उस वेपन का दुरुपयोग करके भारत हो, अपने संसद हो, अपने मुंबई हो, महाराष्ट्र हो, कई जगह पे आतंकवादियों हमला करने के बाद लोगों की जाने गई है, उसका अनुभव हम सारे मुंबई वासियों ने लिया है, पूरे सांसदों ने लिया है। इसीलिए ऐसे वेपन्स को डिस्ट्रॉय करना, नष्ट करना और पूरे विश्व में शांति निर्माण करने की आवश्यकता निर्माण हो चुकी है। हमारे गौतम बुद्ध ने जो शिक्षा दी है उन्होंने यही कहा। हमारे ज्ञानेश्वर ने संत ज्ञानेश्वर हमारे महाराष्ट्र के उन्होंने कहा, सभापति महोदय, सर्वेत्र सुखिनम संतु सर्वे संतु निरामया। तो सबकी भलाई होनी चाहिए, सबकी शांति से जागरण होनी चाहिए। इसीलिए ऐसे वेपन को नष्ट करना ये आज का एकमात्र संदेश भारत देश और हिंदुस्तान के माध्यम से जा रहा है। मैं आभार व्यक्त करता हूं, अभिनंदन करता हूं मंत्री महोदय का और मेरा विचार समाप्त करता हूं। धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद जी। श्री चंद्रशेखर साहू जी।
Thank you, sir. Sir, I rise to speak on the weapons of mass destruction and their delivery systems, provision of unlawful activities amendment bill 2022, brought by our Honorable External Affairs Minister. Sir, this is a very old bill because in 2005 this bill has been sanctioned, but during that time this is only the provision of lawful activity passed 2005 only banned manufacture of weapons of mass destruction. Sir, the bill seeks to provide for provision against financing of proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and their delivery systems so as to fulfill our international obligations. The United Nations Security Council's targeted financial sanctions and recommendations of Financial Action Task Force have mandated against financing of proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and their delivery systems, and this bill has been brought on this background, sir. Sir, when it comes to preventing weapons of mass destruction and proliferation, we need to be conscious of both state and non-state actors. Money laundering, terrorist financing, and the financing of the proliferation weapons of mass destruction can have negative effects on a country, including increase in violent and organized crime and corruption. From international perspective, it can result in loss of reputations on international market, loss of donor functioning, loss of foreign direct investment, loss of credibility for financial sector. Therefore, identifying, assessing and understanding proliferation financing risks on a regular basis is very much essential. Sir, India has always made its position clear on this issue. India opposed signing the NPT and CTBT for valid reasons, sir. India had campaigned for improving a ban on nuclear weapons testing for a long period. In 1954, India initiated a global call at the UN Disarmament Commission for an end to nuclear testing and a freeze on missile material productions. In 1978 and 1982, at the special session on disarmament, India proposed for banning nuclear testing, and in 1988, it introduced action plan for the time-bound elimination of nuclear weapons. However, in 1993, India took a different course and opposed the treaty on the ground that it is silent on destruction of existing nuclear stockpiles. The treaty also doesn't contain any time-bound program for destruction of nuclear weapons, thereby leaving nuclear disarmament solely at the discretion of nuclear weapon states. Sir, India underlined the importance of the Chemical Weapons Convention and the Biological Weapon Convention as examples of non-discriminating treaties in the field of disarmament for the total elimination of specific type of nuclear weapons of mass destruction. India reaffirms that disarmament is a primary goal of Chemical Weapons Convention and should remain the priority till the complete destruction of all chemical weapons is achieved. India is a responsible nuclear weapon state and is committed as per its nuclear doctrine to maintain credible minimum deterrence with the posture of non-first use and non-use against non-nuclear weapon states. At the UN, India supports the full and effective implementation of Chemical Weapons Convention and emphasized the strengthening of the OPCW to fulfill its important mandate. The bill is in national interest, sir, and in accordance with our international obligation, I, on behalf of my party, Biju Janata Dal, supports this bill. Any step in the direction of national security and global peace, we always support, sir. In fact, our Honorable Chief Minister, Sri Naveen Patnaik ji, has advocated for inclusion of ahimsa, that means non-violence, in the preamble of our Constitution, that will strengthen India's position as a leader of peace. With these words, I support the bill, sir, and I conclude. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Sri Ritesh Pandey ji.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker Sahab, Chairperson. I rise to support the Weapons of Mass Destruction and the Delivery System Prohibition of Unlawful Activities Amendment Bill 2022. The bill amends under Clause 2 the intersection of, there's a new section, Section 12A, which reads out that no person shall finance, or provide financial services for any activity which is prohibited under this Act or under the UN National Security Council Act 1947 or any other relevant act for the time being enforced or by an order issued under such act in relation to weapons of mass destruction and their delivery systems. Sir, I have two small apprehensions to this bill, and I'm sure that through my discussion over here, those points will be taken in. In the resolution 1540-2004, the Security Council decided that all the states shall refrain from providing any form of support to actors that attempt to develop, acquire, manufacture, possess, transfer to actors, in particular terrorists, for terrorist purposes. Nonetheless, sir, detecting proliferation relevant illicit financing is even harder than detecting money laundering or terrorism financing. The risk posed by weapons of mass destruction stems not only from ready-made bombs, nuclear, chemical or radiological materials, but also from dual-use goods and technology that are traded, shipped, and are sort of traded all across the world. Even the components of nuclear-powered reactors that generate electricity rely on dual-use component technology that can be used in in a nuclear weapon. Problem perception with the private financial sector is that proliferation financing controls refer to the implementation of country-specific sanctions. For example, those designated to prevent North Korea and Iran from tapping into the global financing system for proliferation activities. However, country-specific sanctions should not be seen as integral, but not the only part of proliferation financial controls. Financial institutions are aware of UN Security Council resolutions, though they are not always equipped to implement country-specific ones. Moreover, sanctions implementation is the limited capacity of financial institutions to distinguish proliferation activity. Financial institutions see only a small part of data related to a given transaction, as they do not have the technical expertise to distinguish what is proliferation relevant and what is not. So that's a very difficult thing for financial institutions to figure out, and that is something that has to be taken into consideration. One of the most important areas of the government to work upon is on informing the private sector promptly to match changes in the in the UN designations of entities and individuals. For example, if the UN Security Council designates new entities of individuals for proliferation, but as a given country fails to update this list, what happens is that these financial institutions, they continue to trade with these entities because they're not made aware of these changes in time. So that is something also that needs to be considered, sir. And finally, I would like to say that there are certain practicalities, sir, and that come into these issues, and they need to be resolved. Financial institutions and softwares that screen transactions against the list of UN-designated entities and individuals, in practice, such screening systems return high numbers of negative false positives. So basically what that means is that because of name similarities, when you update the list, a high number of names come back to the system as false positives, and that percentage is around 95%. So this is a huge risk, and risk managers spend a lot of time trying to figure this out, which is very, very difficult for them, for example, to take such high volume numbers name, and they have to get into a menial job of separating them, which they could use for some other thing. On behalf of Bahujan Samaj Party and and Bahan Kumari Mayawati ji, I would like to support this bill. And one more request, sir. We haven't passed a single bill unanimously. And there are many bills that we have gone out, and there have been support from the opposition as well. I think such a bill, when everybody is supporting it, chair se kam sarvsambhat sunna chahiye hum logon ko, kyunki isme hum logon ka bhi haath hai. Bahut dhanyawad.
Thank you.
We have honorable members from Maharashtra who are here. I think MLAs from Maharashtra. I think it'll be nice if you could welcome them.
Honorable Member Srimati Supriya Sule.
Thank you so much. I stand here in support of the bill that we are discussing today. I would definitely like to quote what the India stand at the UN is. It says that they're deeply concerned over proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and their delivery system. The earlier Professor Saugata Babu already has spoken about it at length, but in a synopsis I would like to say that India supports the full and effective implementation of Chemical Weapon Convention and emphasizes the strengthening of the OPCW to fulfill its important mandate. Sir, it's very good that we have brought in this bill, and it's clearly India has always had a very good and a positive image of a peace-loving, peace-making country. So I congratulate the Honourable Minister for bringing in this bill. But I would like to bring to the notice of this House of what he said, that we have come to the new world order, which it is true that the world has changed. And there's a book by Mr. W. Seth Karras. It's called Defining Weapons of Mass Destruction. And it's one of the papers where he has said that the Center of Study of Weapons of Mass Destruction, which is a National Defense University, where they have recommended that why don't we expand the scope, given how the world is, even the war today globally is a hybrid war now, as we call it. So they have recommended that the India's definition is for nuclear, biological and chemical weapons. So can we expand it? May not be literally in this bill, but maybe in the next few months to come, if you could consider this, is my request to you, is the new challenges because of this new world order is get radiology involved in it, talk about high explosives, talk about weapons of mass destruction or effect, potentially include CBRNE weapons, other means of causing massive disruption such as cyber attacks, electromagnetic attacks, munitions. So I think if we could make it, I think we'll really set a very good order and a new precedent in the world that India is very serious and committed. I think that's the only suggestion that I would really like to make. Besides this, in the larger scheme of things, it's a very small example, but I would like to put it on the table. That in Maharashtra recently, there was a small power crisis in Mumbai city for over 3 hours. And people say it was hacking, it was electromagnetic system which collapsed. This could be a very small trial, we don't know. But for a city like Mumbai to have no electricity, we don't know how it stopped, how it collapsed, nothing wrong with the grid. Could have it been an attack? I have no evidence to prove it, but this is how the story begins. So could we consider broadening the definition is the only point I'm trying to make here. Besides this, I would like to talk about, since nobody else has mentioned it, about the zoonotical diseases. It's like the pandemic. There is a story that COVID-19 was attack which is probably on the globe. So could we have a broader discussion on this is a suggestion I would like to make to the Honourable Minister. What is interesting in this entire debate is I'm so glad that when we got the nuclear agreement, at that time we were sitting on that side, you were in a different role. And there were a lot of objections. I don't want to get into the tutu meme of this because it's a very serious bill, but I'm so glad that the agreement that the Honourable Manmohan Singh ji led at that time to put really India on the global map, today is become a reality, and in the nuclear supply group, we are a very important group. I really want to know from the Honourable Minister that with all this that is, we are using all the new friendships that you have made in the last few years, I would like to ask the Honourable Minister that why haven't we joined the group as yet, and what are we doing to excel our position? America was very positive about it. There were a lot of nations who have supported India, but there are nations who have objected, like New Zealand, Ireland, Australia, China. They have objected to us. Now, what is our position with such wonderful relations? Because China, I still remember this article and I was too tempted. I hope you indulge me with this and take it on a lighter note of little banter in Parliament sometimes. Because there was a story which I was too tempted to talk about today. It says they talked, they posed and they left. This is the Indian Prime Minister and the Chinese President met 18 times, I stand corrected, could be more maybe, since 2014. And there were many meetings that they have had, which I'm sure, I think I'm a big one for dialogue. I am completely against any war. But what has happened to our position, and by having so many meetings, like they talked, they posed and they left. So what really happened between these three activities when they talked, they posed and left? There must something more substantial should come out of it. So I would like to ask the Honourable Minister where this is. Now, like my colleague Ritesh Pandey talked extensively about the financing of it, I would like to ask the Honourable Minister, it's a very good bill. I think any such thing must be stopped. I think the entire House in one voice supports your bill. My only clarification I would like to ask is that there's a note that freeze, seize and attach that's in the statement of objects and reasons. It's the point number 5, B point number 1. I appreciate this is a wonderful thing we must, but what concerns me, and more so because it's something very new, I'm not a financial expert, but I hear so much about the darknet and the crypto. Now, if all this funding is done through this, how are we, and this is not only our problem, it's a global problem. Now, right now, our country has taxed it at 30%. The Honorable RBI Governor, and not just the present Governor, several governors have constantly said that this kind of digital money or transaction, as you called it, right now, it's really, I'm confused because it's not legal is what the government says, but at the same time, it's taxing it, 30% tax. So I mean, there's too much confusion. So does an investor invest in it? Because tomorrow the government will say, "Arey, ye to karna hi nahi tha." And if they are bringing in this into crypto, so it could be an attack here, but somebody could be paying in some other country. So how are we going to seize? How are we going to freeze? How are we going to attach the funds? So this is completely a grey area, which I think we must deliberate. And it's not only about us, it's about a global issue that we need to raise. Sir, another thing that happened was, which obviously was not something which was actually a little embarrassing for us, and I respect the Honourable Defence Minister, was very, very gracious when about the BrahMos experiment, I would call it. It was a mistake that happened. It was a misfire. I know nobody did it intentionally, but the Honourable Defence Minister was very, very kind enough to come and showed such humility of the Defence Minister to come and say that we will take corrective action and have inquiry, but it was not intended at all. But the Philippines has objected is what comes in the newspaper. I'm quoting all the data that has come with. I have no access to any information. I'm going by what media says. So if the Philippines has shown concern, now these kind of situations happen, then how are we going to control it? So I think let's make it a little more academic also. Yes, we support this bill completely in one voice in this entire House, but we must definitely be very, very careful about the new technology coming in, and all we are just raising our concerns, even if these are just to make sure it's a flawless bill and make sure that India is known for what it's really, which is about truth, and it's about being a partner to everybody, which is absolutely no warfare and a peace-loving nation like the Mahatma would have wanted. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Member Sri Jaydev Kallaji.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I rise to support the bill moved by the Honourable External Affairs Minister. The objective of the bill is limited. It seeks to ban funding for weapons of mass destruction and gives power to the Union government for appropriate action against the culprits under the provisions of the WMD Act. Sir, I have a few quick points I would like to make. Here I would like to appreciate first the foresight of our former Prime Ministers, Srimati Indira Gandhi and Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, in making India a nuclear state, sir. The reason I say this is because as we see what's happening in Ukraine, which remained a non-nuclear country since it believed the assurances given to it by the Western NATO and gave up its nuclear arms. But looking at the current situation, the Ukraine question arises. The question arises, would Russia have attacked Ukraine if Ukraine had possessed nuclear weapons? And conversely, could Russia have attacked Ukraine if Russia didn't have nuclear weapons with the confidence that it wouldn't be countered by the rest of the world? Sir, the traditional arguments for nuclear non-proliferation have been somewhat disproven with this current case. Along with the New World Order, we also need a new paradigm or a new nuclear doctrine, not only to avoid mutually assured destruction, which is what between nuclear powers, which was the case in earlier days, but also how do we assure that non-nuclear countries of their sovereign rights? How do we prevent nuclear countries from misusing their nuclear threat to bully smaller non-nuclear countries? This needs to be addressed by the world at large, and India has a leading role to play in defining this, sir, going forward. Sir, what is the future of non-proliferation really needs to be carefully examined, understood, and a new paradigm needs to emerge, sir. Sir, one clarification I wish to seek is that the proposed insertion of Clause 12A appears to be a little vague. Here you are saying no person shall finance any activity prohibited under this Act or under the UN Security Council Act 1947 or any other relevant act for the time being in force. I think this appears to be a bit vague, as we have not mentioned which are the relevant acts under which you propose to take action. So I suggest for consideration of the Honourable Minister to attach a schedule to this bill and list out the acts, agreements and conventions, etc., which come under the purview of this legislation. The next point I wish to make is relating to India's full support and effective implementation of the Chemical Weapons Convention and strengthening the Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons and the mandate given to it. And at the same time, we are also voicing our support for institutional strengthening of the Biological Weapons Convention and bat for legally binding protocol. But if you look again at the ongoing Russia-Ukraine armed conflict, we have seen umpteen times statements coming from Russia about the use of chemical weapons and Ukraine claiming that Russia may use biological or chemical weapons and at any time. So does this not defeat the very convention and objective which India and other countries are pursuing? If signatories to the convention are blatantly breaking it, then what is the use of this convention, sir? Secondly, we are going to have the 9th Review Conference of the Biological Weapons Convention this year. So I wish to know what would be the approach of India in this conference in light of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. The third point I wish to make is about the effective response to a chemical or biological attack, particularly on our citizens. I wish to know what sort of mechanism we have in place, be it relating to detection or providing antidotes or to decontaminate and guide people not to consume contaminated food and water. I am asking this as we have seen the vulnerability of sarin nerve gas bioterrorism attack in Tokyo, where in spite of having much better mechanism than India, showed that the vulnerability of the civilian population and killed 200 people in that attack, sir. So I wish to know the kind of mechanism and national strategy that is in place in the event of a chemical or biological attack. Sir, the next point which I want to make, I think several people also asked about the coronavirus in light of, questioning whether it's actually a biological attack or not. I don't think we've been able to come to any final conclusion on this because China is neither sharing any information nor allowing any inspections. And there are contradicting stories which the Honourable Minister is aware of more than what I could understand. If it is a biological weapon, the entire world could do nothing or even come to a conclusion that it is a biological weapon, leave alone taking action or imposing sanctions on China. In such a scenario, I doubt that enactments like these would be of any help. So I wish to have a response from the Honourable Minister on this as well. Sir, I feel today more than chemical and biological weapons, the world is threatened and facing risks posed by cyber weapons, hypersonic missiles, drone swarms, pandemic outbreaks, be it man-made or natural. Now drones are innovative and a novel delivery of weapons of mass destruction, be it chemical or biological, and are operated through artificial intelligence. So we need to evolve strategies and create firewalls against such attacks in India. I'm sure the House would like to know what efforts are being made by the Ministry in this regard, since there is nothing in this bill. Sir, finally, I am fully with the Honourable Minister and the Government to ruthlessly crush financing any activity which even in the remote possible way is trying to help any activity to prepare or produce or help in making weapons of mass destruction and their delivery. But I just wish to seek one clarification. In the pursuit of India's national interest and for more benevolent use of such technologies, scientific research must have been taking place on such technologies. And the Honourable Minister is aware that sort of R&D is critical for this country. So I ask the Honourable Minister to simply clarify what the government has done to ensure that such critical research on such technologies is not impeded even unintentionally due to this legislation. So, sir, these are some of the issues I thought that I should flag and to share with the Honourable Minister. I request him to look into them and see how best we can strengthen this legislation from all corners to protect not only this country, but also its exclusive economic zone and beyond. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Honourable Member Shri Manish Tiwari ji.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, sir. Mr. Chairperson, sir, I don't think anybody has a quibble with this bill. As Minister Jaishankar explained, that it is essentially to make us legally compliant with the mandates of the United Nations Security Council and the recommendations of the Financial Action Task Force. But Mr. Chairperson, sir, behind the original bill which this bill seeks to amend lies an incredible story of multi-partisanship that we as a country need to celebrate. It's a story of how we first of all created, then nurtured, sustained our strategic autonomy without giving up our principled position towards a world where there is verifiable, universal and comprehensive nuclear disarmament. And this is a story which started at the inception of the Indian nation itself in 1948, when the Atomic Energy Commission was established. In 1954, you had the Atomic Energy Establishment in Trombay, which is now called the Bhabha Atomic Research Center, which was brought into existence. 1962, this House legislated the Atomic Energy Act, and after the 1962 Sino-Indian conflict and the 64 test, the nuclear test which was carried out by China at Lap Nor on the 16th of October 1964, we commenced our nuclear weapons program. And that culminated in the first peaceful nuclear explosion in 1974 under the leadership of then Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi. And then in 1998, when Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the Prime Minister, we decided to make the de jure de facto by carrying out 2 nuclear tests on the 11th of May and the 13th of May 1998. And why do I say de jure, de facto to de jure is because some people would recall the history of Operation Brass Tacks in 1986 and the Robert Gates mission of 1990, which essentially sent out a very, very clear signal that not only did we have the capacity in the early 90s, but unfortunately, so did our Western neighbor across the border. But the incredible thing, Mr. Chairperson, sir, is that all throughout this long journey, unlike Pakistan, which opened a nuclear Walmart, it had a rogue scientist called A.Q. Khan, who was not only accused, but finally even held prima facie guilty by Pakistan itself for proliferating nuclear and missile technology. India has been able to maintain an impeccable track record insofar as non-proliferation is concerned. And I think that was the reason why in 2008, when India negotiated the Indo-US nuclear agreement under the leadership of then Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, and the minister was, I think, then Joint Secretary Americas and had played a very important role in bringing that agreement to fruition. Not only were we the first non-nuclear weapon state in order to be able to conceptualize an agreement which effectively smashed the entire architecture of nuclear apartheid, which was created when the first peaceful nuclear explosion was carried out with the formation of the London Suppliers Group, but we were able to also get a clean waiver from the Nuclear Suppliers Group with regard to that Indo-US nuclear agreement. And that brings me, Mr. Chairperson, sir, to a couple of questions which I have for the Minister, which of course may go beyond the, beyond the amplitude of this bill. My first question is that unfortunately, after the 2008 Indo-US nuclear agreement and the clean waiver that we got from the Nuclear Suppliers Group, we do not seem to have made much progress with regard to getting membership of that particular organization. My colleague, Honorable Supriya Sule had alluded to some of the obstacles that are there, certain countries which are opposing India's membership of the NSG. I would want the Minister to really try and bring this House up to speed as to whether there has been any progress between 2018, when the summit was held in Kazakhstan, if I remember correctly from the top of my head, till 2022, in our efforts to get membership of the Nuclear Suppliers Group. My second question, of course, which was alluded to by some members of this House, given that we've had this impeccable track record of non-nuclear proliferation, and coupled with that, we have maintained a very high degree of exactitude insofar as our delivery systems are concerned. The recent inadvertent launch of the BrahMos missile, which landed in Mia Chunu in Pakistan, and which, if you go by reports in the public domain, could have not only endangered civilian aircrafts which are in the vicinity of the trajectory of this missile, but also may have invited a retaliatory launch, given that, unlike us, our Western neighbor actually has a first-use posture. If the Minister could actually throw light as to what steps has the government taken after this inadvertent incident to ensure that something of this sort does not get repeated in future. My penultimate question is with regard to something strange that I discovered while I was researching this bill. In the year 2018, in the Bodh Gaya blast case, the Weapons of Mass Destruction Act was invoked by the National Investigating Agency. In fact, they invoked Section 14, 17, and 19, and the public reports which are there, or whatever is there in the public domain, is completely ambiguous about really what happened after these sections were invoked. If the Minister could enlighten us, whether charge sheets were filed in terms of these relevant sections of the WMD Act, because as I understand it, the Weapons of Mass Destruction Act is essentially to ensure that there is no proliferation of chemical, biological, radiological or nuclear weapons. And since this was a first that our National Investigating Agency had actually invoked provisions of this Act, if the Minister could enlighten the House as to what has been the progress qua those negotiations. My last point would relate to our no first use posture. In the August of 1999, in fact on the 17th of August 1999, after our nuclear test, India had put a draft nuclear doctrine in place, which was then formalized on the 4th of January 2003 by the Cabinet Committee of Security. And since then, we've had a posture of recessed deterrence and no first use. In the year 2014, just before the elections, in the manifesto which was brought out by the Bharatiya Janata Party, if I recall correctly, on page 39 in the sub-paragraph, there was a certain amount of ambiguity with regard to this no first use posture. Subsequently, former Defence Minister Mr. Parrikar, when he was releasing a book, had actually gone a little further and really suggested that the no first use posture possibly could be under consideration. And even the current Defence Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, on the 16th of August 2019, had alluded to it, or alluded to some ambiguity in it after his visit to Pokhran. The reason why I am posing these questions is because all this has created a consternation, and given the fact that our neighborhood is extremely becoming difficult, it would be enlightening to hear from the Minister as to whether we continue to maintain a no first use posture, or is there any rethink in government which he would like to share with the House. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson.
Yes.
The House.
Yes.
Because when Pokhran took place, Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee took me also along. I would like to say one thing. We are proud of our scientists.
If you want to speak in the House, you can speak.
We are proud of our scientists because America, with all the information they have, they had no information that India is going to do this test. I think we should take this note and congratulate our scientists that no one in the world came to know that we have done this test.
Sir, you should see a thing called permanent.
Thank you. Honorable Member Sri Satyapal Singh ji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, sir. I rise here in the defense and in support of this new amendment bill, the weapon of mass destruction and their delivery system, provision of the Unlawful Activities Amendment Bill 2022. As we know, it was an old act in the same name which was enacted in 2005, many of our esteemed members have mentioned. As the Honorable Minister had mentioned yesterday and today also, that we are compliant or conforming to the United Security Council targeted financial sanctions and the recommendations of the Financial Action Task Force, which was mandated against financing of the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and their delivery systems. In view of the above, there is a need to amend the said Act to provide against the financing of proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and their delivery systems so as to fulfill our international obligations. The bill seeks to insert a new section, just 12A. It's not much an amendment in that way. In the existing law, which states that no person shall finance an activity which is prohibited under the Act or under the United Nations Security Council Act 1947 or any other relevant act for the time being in force or by an order issued under any such act in relation to weapons of mass destruction and their delivery systems. The bill would give the Government of India powers to freeze, seize, and attach funds or other financial assets or economic resources owned or controlled wholly or jointly, directly or indirectly by such person or held by or on behalf of or at the direction of such person or derived or generated from the funds of other assets owned or controlled directly or indirectly by such person. Thank you very much. Sir, I would like to say that this bill, this amendment bill, it shows the deep commitment of Government of India to our counter-terror measures. And I would like to congratulate our Honorable Prime Minister. The way he has taken the leadership and took over as there is a matter of great concern for all of us. So we are all, a country as a whole is vulnerable to such kind of the attacks. How to prepare ourselves, how to train our forces for this, and how to equip ourselves, that is really very... Nowadays we just believe on this, like NDRF will take care of it, or SDRF will take care of it, but everywhere NDRF is not there, and I think it will take a lot of time. I think that is an issue which should be, I think, Similarly, about large facilities are required to isolate and decontaminate our patients and victims. There is no clarity on that in our disaster management manuals. Sir, I would also like to give one story which has been published by one American book. The book name is Anti-Gravity Handbook. In fact, this story would not have come to our notice. In 1985, this book has been published. They have given a very wonderful story what really happened. In 1965, Chinese, while they were in occupation over Tibet and Lhasa, they got some pages, some manuscripts, Sanskrit manuscript, and these Sanskrit manuscripts were sent to one of Professor Ruth Rayana, an American professor and a Sanskrit scholar and Indologist. She was on sabbatical at that time in University of Punjab in Ludhiana. These papers or these manuscripts were sent to her for translation. This lady translated this manuscript. One translation was sent to our Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, and one translation of this version was sent to this Chinese. Our Indian Institute of Bangalore, after a few years, they came out that this is not of much use, and it cannot be used, and it is not part of the book we claim, the Jan servers. By after a few years in 1975,